Hi
Hello,
all.
everyone.
Hello, let's start. So, Arina is with me today. We are the hosts of today's event, the first global conference of our beloved community. Arina, hello.
Hello, Gauhar. Gauhar is the driver of our community, our brain, heart of our community. Yes, and how is weather, Gauhar, in Almaty now?
Um, we couldn't ask for a better day than this, yes. And Arina is a professional moderator, active and key member of our core team, professionally delivers tech talks. Yes. So I'm in Almaty currently. It's the largest city in Kazakhstan, ex-capital city with 2 million of population. Yeah, Kazakhstan is rapidly developing international and the largest country, which is located mainly in Central Asia and partly in Western Europe, with an area almost 3 million square kilometers. It's equivalent in size to Western Europe. So Kazakhstan is the ninth largest country and the largest landlocked country in the world. The population of Kazakhstan almost 20 million. Yes, the weather is really nice. Now it's summertime. Yeah, and how is weather in Karaganda, Arina?
Today is a bit cloudy. Yes, Karaganda is in center of Kazakhstan. I'm also from Kazakhstan. Yes, and today is cloudy. Also, weather in Karaganda is very interesting. We like have -14 winter and +14 summer. Yeah. And what you are waiting from this conference, Gauhar?
I'm really very excited about this conference. So I hope that it will be really useful, and auditorium will be very active. We will get positive feedback, positive emotion. So please send us pages, send for our speakers pages.
And for us, don't forget about us, moderators.
Okay,
Yes, and I am also waiting for very interesting tech talks. They have our interesting, very professional speakers, and I think it's will be a very interesting event. Okay, let's start. And we have a gift from QAHub competition in Instagram. Now you see rules on your screen. Please scan this QR code, follow us on Instagram, post photo how you watch our conference, how you listen it. You can post several stories how you want, and then tomorrow we will have a live session on our Instagram, and we will choose our winner. Please, another rule, posts are accepted, your post should be accepted until May 18, 3 o'clock UTC +6. Okay, good luck, everyone.
good luck. Okay. So let's speak about what is a QA Hub. Quality Assurance Hub is a community of people who are not indifferent to quality assurance. Our goal is to unite testers from all over the world, exchange experience and the knowledge, and develop testing expertise. QAHub was born almost 1.5 years ago. We follow only one goal. It is quality assurance, everything about quality assurance. Our team is so excited to organize different events to be useful for our audience and to grow in different countries. Yeah, and in 1.5 years, we have almost 5,000 followers. Happy that we can help for people and unite them in our events such as hackathons, quests, test competition, conference, tech talks, podcasts, marathons. This is what we are doing and what we are love to do it. So we have also podcasts. Please follow us on Spotify, Anchor, Amazon Music, Castbox, Google Podcasts. We have really interesting topics and really share it. So I hope it will be really useful. Uh, Follow us on our social networks, join to the platform to participate, get new knowledge, and win prizes. Yeah, your
Yes.
turn, Arin.
Thank you, Gohar. Yes, also we want to thank you all our team and also our partners. You can see all our partners. You can also follow them. And about our Global QAHub Management Conference. Today we have a lot of interesting topics. How I mentioned when we started, today we're going to talk about connected testing in future, three-layer testing architecture, latest trends in testing with scriptless automation, QA education in neural networks, and other who's test manager, and other interesting topics. Our agenda today will be first, Adam will start with his topic connected testing in future. Then Tatiana and Irina will continue with interesting topic who is test manager. We will continue with Svetoslav Kulikov who will talk about key education in neural network. Next topic will be about latest trends in testing with scriptless automation. Charuta will talk about it and we'll wrap up with three-layer testing architecture. Peter Fohazi will talk about this topic. And thank you all. Let's introduce our first speaker.
Okay, so let me introduce our first speaker. Is a true leader in his field, and we are so much honored to have him here today. Vice President, Head of Cloud Agility and the Testing Practice, DevOps, NGX, Agile, Testing, Technology Leader specializing in driving adoption of continuous delivery at scale, professional speaker at global conferences and the tech talks on the topic of delivery testing. Adam Erba from United States of America. So let's start.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yes, I am the head of our cloud agility and testing practice. I've been at EPAM for over 5 years now. Our practice is well over 8,000 testers across the globe. And before joining EPAM, I was at several companies across the United States, helping transform testing, implementing DevOps, and getting to continuous delivery. So today I'm gonna talk about connected testing. And before I do that, I'm going to start maybe a little bit, setting the stage for what we see today relative to testing best practices. So this first slide, just, when we look at testing today, we have a couple different aspects of testing. You have testing that's happening within the engineering teams, whether that's happening with testers themselves or you have engineers doing testing. But ideally, this is in sprint, along with the feature development. We also have end-to-end testing. Ideally, this is also in sprint, but it could be outside the sprint. It could be done via the business testers and UAT. And then obviously you have your real world, your end users. Maybe some people are doing some level of testing in production, but it's, somewhat disjointed, if you will. From that, we have clients who are working in an agile fashion. And a lot of times this is what you see. You see that they have several sprints where they're doing some development and testing, but then they still need some type of hardening phase or regression phase or release readiness phase where they're getting they're doing everything from integration, end-to-end UAT. And so this really isn't agile. This is still waterfall. And so, clients look to us to help them, but this is where we then go from agile to, okay, potentially this is where DevOps can help us. So many times clients will say, well, DevOps is like, I have a DevOps team, I have DevOps people, maybe some of you are DevOps engineers, but DevOps is a philosophy. DevOps is about enabling the agile team to do things for themselves. So, I have been at clients where they have a shared service team that does all of the automation, and the testers on the teams only do manual testing, or they're not even on the team. And so this isn't DevOps, and this is, honestly, one of the first failure points of Agile, where you have the team and they're doing work, but then they're dependent on these other groups to do work for themselves. And so, the Phoenix Project, if you haven't read that book, you should get it. The Phoenix Project, it's written by Gene Kim. It's a very easy read, but it talks about lean manufacturing concepts being applied into software development. And so the goal really is around enabling the agile team to do this work for themselves. So automation, having an automation competency center, or COE, which maybe owns the frameworks, which helps drive inner sourcing to enable capabilities. Maybe that's where training happens, or where teams can call up and get support for what they're trying to do. But at the end of the day, they're enabling automation via the agile team. And that's really why DevOps is so important, and how it's really the next big step when people go to agile, because the automation from DevOps really helps enable the agile teams to start delivering more within their sprint, where they can do more of the testing and ideally be able to get deployable code every sprint, maybe even multiple times during the sprint. From a testing perspective, what we're trying to enable is continuous testing. So when we talk about DevOps and testing, what we're talking about is, this is a very simplified view, but basically it's all of the critical tests that we need to run are automated, and they're integrated into the CI process, and they serve as quality gates. So right from, let's say the developer has a branch of code that they're working on. When they go to do that pull request to merge their code, there's some level of unit tests, static code tests that get run, maybe like stubbed out functional tests. Code gets merged, it gets deployed into maybe a development or QA environment. Then the next set of automated tests run. Maybe you're using service virtualization or contract tests to do your API tests. And then based on the results of those tests, then that code gets deployed into performance and staging, and then to the other environments. And so this is the ultimate level of maturity. This is basically our North Star. And if you think about, well, if I have a regression suite, it's thousands of tests, but I have to manually kick it off. There's a lot, it takes hours to run. Like, that's not continuous testing. So this requires a maturity that many people don't have. And in order to get to continuous testing, these are some of the things that you have to be able to follow. So that, we talk about the testing pyramid. The testing pyramid is very important because, what's happened is that people take their manual tests, which are usually through the UI, which are like full end-to-end integrated tests, and then they start automating that. But those tests become very brittle, take long to run. And so, the testing pyramid tells us, like, you need to start at the very small increments. You need to start with a solid foundation of unit tests. You need to have component level tests. So these are tests that are stubbed out and just test the component. You need to have API tests. Potentially you're using a tool like Pact to do contract tests, the UI, and then you do some level of ad hoc and exploratory tests. So by doing the testing pyramid, you're able to have tests that are able to run very quickly. When they fail, you're able to triage those failed tests fairly straightforward. When we talk about continuous testing, how we do engineering really matters. So there has to be a pipeline. We have to have the right CI/CD. We have to have the right architecture. A monolithic architecture is going to be very difficult because it has lots of dependencies that you have to take care of. you need to have the right coding standards and the branching patterns. I have been in situations where a client has different branches based off of the environment, and then they're moving code from one environment to the next, like they're basically cherry picking. Well, when you do that, all of the testing that has been done in that lower environment is totally invalidated. So your engineering excellence really matters, and that's why we ask for testers to be technical, because they need to understand this to be able to speak up. And then that's where shifting left comes into play, because we want to be able to automate as close to developer writing code as possible. This is where, open source test frameworks come into play, like Selenium or Cypress or Playwright. And by automating early in the sprint and having that integrated into the CI and the build and deployment process, we enable those quality gates, which tell the developer if something doesn't work very quickly. And so, shifting left, having the right tools, that helps us enable in-sprint automation. We need to have the right tools in place. So if you take your regression suite and you tried to run it multiple times in a row, most likely it's going to fail the second or third time because of the environment. It's going to fail because of test data. And so we need to have the right tooling to ensure that we have all of the test data that we need on demand, that we're able to stub out our interfaces so that we can do the right level of component test before we do the integration, and that we have the right environment. So are we using some type of mobile lab? EPAM, we have something called MobiTrue, which allows you to run automated tests across different devices. We have partnerships with companies like Sauce Labs, who have a Selenium grid in the cloud with every different browser combination that you can imagine. And so these tools are very critical, because it allows you to parallelize your tests in order to run them very quickly and remove those impediments. And then lastly, you need to have metrics. One thing when we talk to teams or IT leaders in general, and they talk to us about quality, about improving the way that they're working, they have a sense that testing is inefficient. Maybe they have production defects, but they don't really have good set of KPIs around quality, around the SDLC. And so at EPAM, there's an open source tool called Report Portal. You can go to reportportal.io, check it out. So we provide full dashboards for all of your automated tests. We even have the ability to do quality gates. And then Report Portal also uses machine learning to help triage failed tests much quicker. But having those metrics, being able to have KPIs like defect containment, or the cost of poor quality, things like that, so that you can be able to articulate that, hey, when you're not following the testing pyramid, or we don't have the right engineering excellence in place, that here's what bad is happening and how we can add value by making the right level of investments. So now, let's say you've gone to Agile, you have implemented DevOps, you're getting really close to continuous testing, and that's great. And that's definitely going to get you a stable product, but you still might have issues in production, especially if you're a global company. This QA Hub is a wonderful forum, and we have people across the globe. But then that presents its own set of challenges. And so how are you accounting for those end users? And that's where connected testing really comes in, because not only do we need to account for being able to give the engineers fast feedback, but we need to ensure that we're doing this in a most efficient way. But that efficient way might not account for all of our real users. And so connected testing, helps us bridge this gap. And so basically connected testing, I'm going to read this to you. Connected testing is the marriage of DevOps and the real world to deliver human feedback in timeframes that matter for software development. So really trying to ensure that we have that feedback from our real users incorporated into this process, because that's going to allow us to make sure that we test the right things with the right level of risk, but then use the real world to be able to cover some of that additional risk, and have the right telemetry in place to ensure that we can, roll forward if we have an issue. And so, think about all the different cloud platforms. You think about all of the different cell services, the trillions or million, the amount of permutations of applications that people could have open on their phones while they're also using your website, your mobile app. Like, you're just not going to be able to test for that. You're not going to be able to test for someone walking from their house outside, going from Wi-Fi to cell service, back and forth. Like, you just can't test for all of that. And so connected testing is really about incorporating the real world into your testing process and having that right balance so that you can reduce risk, as well as not, like, we have this term, it's called gold plating. Sometimes, especially with maybe financial services or life sciences, we overly test because we have, honestly, if we don't test properly, it could cost us, huge amounts of money, etc. So there's a balance, though, of like not needing to gold plate something to test just enough, but then use real world people to help create that balance and have the right level of insights. And so we at EPAM, we've come up with this term: shift left and test right. So shifting left, we're all familiar. This is around like what I was just talking about, implementing the testing pyramid, getting to continuous testing. So that way we have speed and fast feedback and we have proper coverage. And then test right is how do we use the crowd, people in different locations, different languages, to be able to test, in their location. So that way we're able to have that extra level of security. At EPAM, we have a crowd testing company called Test.io, and this is part of what they specialize in, but also because our testing practice is global, like, we are able to provide some of the same service as well. But this combination of shifting left and testing right allows you to make sure that you have that speed, but you have the right coverage, and you're able to do this in that DevOps agile environment. So that way we're still able to improve quality, but be able to do this in a continuous delivery environment. So when you can test with these types of conditions, you're able to de-risk the release because you're able to test in the different languages, the different devices, the different user experiences. You really can help get full feedback from testers. So like, we have global retailers, and they support 40 plus countries, and so they'll have like some type of stage rollout for their products, but we're able to get faster feedback on those end users because of our ability to use the crowd. And then obviously you can ship faster, right? Like, if you we talked about the contest on Instagram here. When Instagram rolls out a feature, they don't roll it out to the entire globe at once. What they do is they're able to get it into production, get it into a small group of users, see how that's going, and then based off of that telemetry, they're able to then expand the rollout, or they turn off the feature. And so that allows them to get code out the door faster. And the value of that is, as we all know, if you follow the DevOps research and assessment, or it's called DORA, they put out a DevOps report every year. And what they say is that there's a very strong correlation to lead time. There's 5 metrics. They're referred to as the DORA metrics. So it's lead time, mean time to repair, change failure rate, mean time to repair, change failure rate, and I'm missing one, and I can't remember it. But those 5 metrics, they strongly relate to IT performance and company performance. And so being able to have faster releases, smaller releases out the door, being able to leverage the crowd, like, this ensures that you're really at the top of those metrics and the top of IT performance. As part of this approach, it does mean that we have a decoupling, if you will, between deployments and releases. So sometimes some people will say to me, well, Adam, if my clients are large enterprise, we have a SaaS offering, and they can't handle a new update every week or every sprint or every month even. That's why we do quarterly or even bi-yearly releases. And it's okay to have your release schedule be something that your clients can handle. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to move code through into production as quickly as possible. And then you can have a staging environment, you can have feature toggles, you can do things to to deploy to production, but keep that hidden from your end users until they're really ready for that release. And so that's a decoupling of um, production, of the deployments and the release process. So I we'll have some time for questions. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll definitely go through them. I know I have some already, but just covering some real world examples, some case studies from us. So this first one is from video games. So we have a client. They have a global gaming product, and they have 30 different countries that they were trying to roll out to, and using AI to do some level of translation is good, but it's not exact. It doesn't, it's not going to cover the location. So being able to have native speakers be able to validate translations, to make sure that the context and verbiage is all correct based off of that country is extremely important. And so we have a gaming client of ours that used this service, and became very valuable to them to ensure that everything from Chinese, Japanese, Korean, the different several dialects of Spanish, that all of that was validated as part of their testing process. And that's very difficult to automate today. Yes, like you can use the generative AI tools to some extent, but you still at the end of the day really need a native speaker to look at something. There's obviously we all have multiple streaming services that we set up on our phones, on our websites at home. Can you imagine like the validation that needs to happen on a streaming service? Now again, like automation for streaming is somewhat difficult. You can do some type of test harnesses to validate the stream itself, and obviously you can automate the UI and whatnot, and you can check for some of those devices. But there's such a diverse group of devices that support streaming. So making sure that those devices and internet providers across the globe are able to handle the stream itself, what happens when service is low, throughput, like all of this, really can be better tested via the crowd. Even the boxes themselves, right? Like the device, different TVs have different capabilities, and being able to test those. I mean, that's where being able to have people who have those products and being able to test in their countries with their experience becomes a very valuable effort. And frankly, like you're just not going to have a big enough lab and a diverse lab enough to be able to hit all of those different permutations. This was a client of ours that rolled out a new intercom system. And so again, you can test some of this in a lab, but until you actually get the intercom installed into buildings, maybe some buildings are older than others, they have different wiring. We recruited testers. In this case, that was rolled out in Germany. We did this testing in production. We have situations where you had the doors were being unlocked. Somebody had the intercom several floors up in the same building. That person's unlocking somebody else's door floors below. All kinds of just scenarios that you're just not going to replicate in a lab. And this is why connected testing is so important, especially now with as we're getting our cell networks are improved, where all things are going to be talking to each other. You need to have some level of testing in the real world accounted for. You're just not going to be able to do it all within the pipeline. And then I think this maybe is my last slide. before I'll turn it over to questions. But the other thing is payments. So there are several different ways to process payments across the globe, and so being able to make payments in production, again, like based off the cell connectivity, based off different apps, the different payment providers, all of those become different factors. And so, example of making purchases in the real world and making sure that fulfillment works. Even the fulfillment process itself, we have a client where they sent out devices, and one of the biggest costs was the devices being sent back because they don't work. So being able to to make a purchase, validate that you're getting what you purchased, that's all very important and critical to success of clients. And I think that's the end of my slides. And now I will open it up for questions.
Wow, this was a really amazing presentation. I even forget for a while that I'm a moderator. Really cool. Thank you so much, Adam. Special thanks from community for your effort, time, and the presentation. So I would like to ask our audience to not hesitate to send him badges and leave your feedback of our post on Instagram, Telegram. Please do it. And it's time for questions. Please ask them. So we already have questions from platform. Let's start from them. Could you please explain again shift left test and the right shift again? Yes.
Yes. So shift left testing is the process. Maybe I'll go to this slide first. So what shift left testing means is the ability so if you think about in this example, my very first slide, in the situation where you have a large testing effort at the end of the development process. So that's, even though you might be agile, it's still very much waterfallish, whether that's UAT, end-to-end regression. And so shift left says, how do we get rid of or minimize that large testing effort at the end and do that in our sprints so that we can write code, build tests, run those tests, do everything that is needed to certify a feature is ready for production. That's happening on a daily sprint-wise effort and not at the very end. And so shift left really is about getting testing to happen as close to development as possible. And there's different things that you have to go through to make that happen. And then the test right aspect is that connected testing piece. So what if you're making sure that, like in the payment example, like the mobile app, the website, all of the screens, all of the APIs, all of the connectivity, it's working. I can put in transactions, all of my flows are working. Maybe there's some negative testing that you do, but then test right says, okay, well, let's run this in the crowd. Let's have some people with older devices in different locations just do some level of testing as well to ensure that those permutations also work. So I have the security and confidence that my critical scenarios are working from shift left, but in test right, I'm ensuring that those edge cases, that ad hoc exploratory testing is also happening.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So next question. Great presentation. Do you already have the experience or know any experience using artificial intelligence in one of these processes you mentioned? How is it used?
Yes. So the generative AI tools are really great. There's a lot of momentum with them. So we already have, so for TestRight and our Test.io group, we have testers across the globe and many of them speak different languages. And so we're already using AI to help improve the bug reports. So when somebody who speaks French writes a defect and the client is speaking German, we're able to use the generative AI tools to translate the bug report from French to German and ensure that it has the right context. So that's one case. We also have the cases where clients are asking us to help with translation services. So we'll use the generative AI tools to do translation, and then we use the crowd to validate that translation. And then on the shift left side of it, we are already seeing great applicability for automation. So you can build an AI model based off of your test cases and requirements so that it understands the different steps of your application. And then it can create BDD steps for you. You can also teach it how to, you can build a model based on your automation framework. And so that you can ask it to create test steps with the page object automation code. So that way the AI tool is giving you, full suite automation. So we already have projects where we're using those tools, and you're already seeing, a 30-40% increase in productivity. It's not replacing our testers. So don't think of these tools. They are just tools, additional tools in our toolbox, but it definitely, if applied correctly, can create significant efficiencies in the way that you're working.
Perfect. Thank you. So, question from Ivan Protasov. How to solve the issue of test automation team has only a few days for making tests at the end of a sprint when application development is done, aside having huge automation team?
Yes. So honestly, if the sprint is 2 weeks and you're only getting the last couple days of the sprint to do automation, then you have a breakdown in how the team is working. So that's why I know it's tough to see, but this engineering excellence picture in the middle really matters. So that's when a situation like that, that's usually because they're waterfalling the sprint itself, meaning they get their stories in, they decompose their stories, they start to write their code, and then they're done writing their code after 5 or 6 days, and then they hand it over to testing. That's waterfall, even though you have an agile team in the sprint. So the stories need to be small. They need to be like 1 to 3 points. They need to be stuff that can be delivered within the first couple days. And it should be a very iterative process throughout the sprint of development and testing. And so I would ask you to look at the backlog itself and how the engineers are working, because ideally you should be getting code within the first couple days of the sprint.
Thank you. Okay, so please ask questions, leave comments. We have a questions from platform also. How do you think, Adam, will traditional manual testing methods become absolute in the future with the rise of automation and artificial intelligence powered testing?
Definitely not. So I tell people when they are hiring testers that you should hire technical testers, and I stand behind that. That doesn't mean that manual testing is dead. It just means that manual testing is changing, and that's where connected testing really comes in, that we still need to test. We still need to do ad hoc exploratory testing. There is nothing that's going to replace the real world. And these generative AI tools, they are not, they don't have context. They're just giving you answers based off the models that they have. They're not going to be able to replicate what a manual tester can do. So they're going to create efficiencies in our automation, in our engineering work, but manual testing, there still will be an effort to do manual testing. And honestly, I think there'll be a bigger focus on domain knowledge. So understanding, like if you work at an insurance company, the claims process, payer provider process, you work in financial services, what is understanding capital markets. So I think what we're going to see is, while we had over the last 5 or 10 years, we had this shift towards engineering focused testers. I think that's still going to be the case, but you're going to need to have the domain knowledge as well, because you're going to need to be able to build models. You need to be able to test those models to make, and a tester is going to need to have the context of the domain and understanding the code that's generated to be able to ensure that it's correct. But like I said, nothing's going to replace real world. There still will be some level of manual testing that still happens.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, go to the next question. It's from Igor Bach. Could you please discover a bit more detailed the matter of engineering excellence?
Yes. So engineering excellence, thank you, Igor. So engineering excellence really talks about how the engineers are working in the teams. So many times QA is the scapegoat. We're the ones that people look at and say, well, things are taking too long because of testing, or we're having issues because of testing. But in truth, in order to really test properly, how the developers are working matters. Do they follow the right branching patterns? Do they understand how to write clean code? Do they have an automated build and deployment process? Are they using the cloud infrastructure correctly? Do you have infrastructure automation? Are they writing code that's automatable? So engineering excellence is the sum of all of those engineering best practices. And so that is as important as what we're doing for testing. If we have bad branching patterns, if there's no CI/CD, if we don't have the right infrastructure automation, all of those things, then testing will never reach continuous. It will never be mature. You will always have risk. You will always have production issues. So it has to, as a tester, you have to understand what those engineering excellence capabilities are and how to work with your teams to help enable those capabilities, or recognize how they're currently working, like that other question about getting code deployed at the very end of the sprint. You have to be able to advocate why that's bad and what they need to do differently. That's then going to drive a change in testing.
Thank you. Thank you for answer, Adam. So our next question is from platform. How do you think, Adam, is automation testing necessary for small to medium companies, including startups in the early stages of development, despite the common recommendation to start automation testing as early as possible?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter your size. You're building a brand new website, mobile app. Yes, you should be automating. You should be following test-driven development practices. Maybe you don't have testers. Maybe you have your engineers doing testing, and that drives the different tools that you use. But yes, absolutely. Otherwise, you're going to create some bad practices. You're going to be relying on, if you're not going to do that, then you need to at least do the crowd testing capability. But again, you're going to find more stuff later in the process. And we all know that finding defects in production costs much more to fix than if you find them earlier in the process. So yes, doesn't matter your size. You need to do testing early and often.
Perfect. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Adam. Okay, the last question from platform. We have multiple counts of test cases in general for different test tools and the test frameworks, but do you think automation unblocks most of the defects than manual testing? Your opinion on this is much appreciated.
No. So that's where that, again, like just to kind of reinforce that shift left test, right? So automation is only going to do so much, right? You're programming the test to be run. And so it definitely will follow the workflows and your positive scenarios and maybe some level of negative, but it just won't cover all of those scenarios. And that's why the test right, to being able to use the connected testers in the real world, that's the only way that you're going to get like a true full coverage for your application.
Okay, that was the last question. And I would like to say again, special thanks for you, Adam, personally, for your effort, time, and the presentation, answers. Yeah, I think I am really enjoyed it, and I hope you so. So wish you all the best and always positive audience in future. So good day, Adam. Thank you. So, okay, guys, please don't forget about our competition. Please follow us on Instagram. Scan this QR code, or here in comment we have a link to our Instagram. Tag our conference on your story. Tomorrow we will announce winner. More stories, more chance to win. So, okay. It is my pleasure to introduce our next guest speakers, Tatiana Bartash and Irina Burchuk from Georgia and Belarus. Great and strong test managers, people managers. We are so excited to have them today as speakers and our guests. They are very experienced top managers of EPAM and so happy today, now, that Tanya and Ira will have share with their experience. So let's start.
Okay, let me start. I hope you see my screen. And today we will be talking about test manager role. But before I start, let me shortly introduce myself. My name is Irina Burchuk. I'm quality engineering manager at EPAM Systems company. I have more than 10 years experience in testing. During these years of experience, I gained such skills as test management, functional testing, and scriptless automated testing. By the way, we have a separate talk during today's conference devoted to scriptless automated testing, so stay tuned. And today I will be accompanied by Tatiana Bartash, who is Director in Quality Engineering at EPAM Systems, who has very wide experience in testing, test management, and people management, and who will share her experience during the Q&A session. So a couple of words about test manager role and how it appeared. On this schema, on the left side, you can see different key activities. And being successful in some of these activities, you can perform the roles on the right side in gray, which we have at EPAM. I put test manager in a green circle, and you can see that it derives from the test planning and control. So let's start. Who is test manager? On this slide, I put ISTQB definition of this role. This is the person responsible for project management of testing activities and resources and evaluation of a test object. The most important words in this sentence is project management of testing activities, which corresponds to delivery on the circle, which you can see below the definition. Management of resources, which corresponds to people, and evaluation of a test object, which corresponds to consulting. So now let's go deeper to each of these areas of responsibility and see what test manager does for each of them. Let's start with delivery. Efficient test planning, implementing and control of functional and non-functional testing, including automated testing, is in the responsibility of test manager. Next one is requirements engineering and management. It includes ensuring that requirements are efficiently covered with the test cases. They are traceable to test cases, to automated test cases if the automation is in place, and also to bugs. Project management. When we're talking about project management activities, we mean that test manager should plan testing schedule, control it, should plan number and skill set of key resources, foresee and raise product and project risks, come up with risk management strategy, communicate these risks and the strategy to the project management and to the client management. Next responsibility is configuration management. It means ensuring that testing is done sufficiently on each configuration and is not duplicated for similar configurations. Release management implies such activities as planning the release testing scope, planning incident management, users, time available for their release, and so on and so forth. Change management. Performing change management, test manager should think about the impact of the changes to the testing schedule, to the testing scope, time to market, and raise all the risks immediately. And the last but not least is delivery and technical support coordination on every phase. Next big area is people. Here we need to make sure that we found appropriate people for the appropriate positions on our project, and ensuring smooth onboarding and adaptation, providing learning and development opportunities for our team members, um, collaborating with their resource managers, aligning with their personal development plans, um, provide them with career opportunities on the project, like gaining new skills or maybe playing in new roles. Here, it's very important to recognize and reward people. Test manager can use both material and non-material recognition. Next big area is consulting. It implies four responsibilities. The first one is product quality assessment. In scope of this assessment, test manager should make sure that the product quality corresponds to the needs of their client and also to the industry standards. Testing process assessment also should make sure that the processes are efficient enough and correspond to industry standards, recommendations. Next is technologies and tools assessment. And one more is team efficiency assessment, which implies the following. So you should check the motivation of your team, seniority level of your team, also if the team works productive or not and what are the reasons, and so on. However, at EPAM, we have a bit extended vision, and I put it also on the screen. So we see that test manager is the person responsible for test management, project management, people management, and client management on a big scale project. As you can see, we added client management because we are all working with the clients, and a big scale project. It means more than one stream and 7 people in total. It might be manual case, automated case, non-functional case, whatever. If we look at the circle, you can see that the areas are absolutely the same. And for delivery, all the responsibilities are the same as we saw on the previous slide for STQB. However, for people, we add one more responsibility, like building a community, consulting people, making sure that people can ask questions, people can share their knowledge, people can ask for advice in case they see some situation which they never met before. Also, talking about consulting, we added participating in pre-sales and upsell in discovery phase, so contributing to testing competency center, which we have at EPAM. You might notice that test manager is not about testing. And some of these responsibilities are already on other roles on the project. However, we still have a test manager as a separate role. So let's see how test manager differs from already existing roles on the project. Quality architect. I should say that quality architect is not necessarily assigned to any project. However, if he or she is assigned, he or she is focused on a temporary consulting in testing. While test manager is focused on a long-term involvement in a project from all aspects, not only from testing aspect, but also from people management, client relationships. Of course, if there is a quality architect in the project, test manager should consult with this person so that they all together build efficient testing strategy. Next one is solution architect in test, or sometimes it is very mature automation lead. This person is focused on technical aspects of test automation solution, while test manager is focused on test automation strategy definition or improvement. Test manager should work in collaboration with software architect in test or mature automated lead, consult about their tools which are used, about the limitations, so that they have efficient test automation strategy on the project. Next one is project manager or delivery manager. So these people are focused on delivering end-to-end solution, while test manager is focusing on delivering test and service, which is part of end-to-end solution. And here I should say that test manager and project or delivery manager should work closely on regular basis. They should be aligned on the status of the project, on the risks available on the project, on their goals, and so on and so forth. So they should work in pair. Testing team lead. Testing team lead, this is a person who is focused on test management and people management on a small scale. However, test manager is focused not only on these activities, but also, as we already discussed, on project management and client management. What is important here is that having a big scale project, sometimes it means having lots of streams. And on each of these streams, there can be a separate testing team lead, or for a group of streams, there can be a separate testing team lead. So again, testing team lead and test manager, they should work in pair. They should collaborate on a regular basis to make sure that they follow the same strategy, the same testing approach, to raise the risks immediately if they appear, to discuss future plans. So now let's move on to probably one of the most interesting parts of this presentation, at least for me. I will share with you real tasks which I, as a test manager, faced on production projects. And I divided these real tasks into 3 areas. As we already discussed, it will be delivery, people, and consulting. I tried to provide 2 examples. One is internal request coming from the team, and one is the external request coming from the customer. So let's see. The first one. Once upon a time, delivery manager came to me and said, "Okay, Irina, we have signed a contract in an absolutely new area of our customer's business. You will play a role of test manager on these streams." Here I should mention that actually it's not some unique request for test manager. Every test manager will face this request at some point of time. On the right, I put the steps which I performed to perform this task, to fulfill this request. Here, I would like to highlight that first of all, you as a test manager need to identify testing stakeholders on the customer side and set up kickoff sessions to discuss their expectations, to discuss their limitations, tool set. Maybe they would like to see some skill set for the people on the project. And then you can proceed with staffing, with test strategy definition, and with controlling. Next one was from the customer. So the request was the following. One of the goals of this product increment is to eliminate automation tech debt. Here I would like to underline that it's very important to consider return of investment. Even though you might have scenarios which are marked as planned for automation, they might be outdated, they might require a lot of effort, they might not be executed very often. So taking this request, first of all, please review all the scenarios marked as available for automation or planned for automation. estimate the efforts. For me, it appeared that we had quite huge technical debt on that particular stream, and the estimations were high. We didn't have enough capacity. That's why I created the proposal to the customer and also considered, estimated some risks for each of these proposals and provided the roadmap. Finally, we got agreement with the customer. Next big area is people. So here I faced the following situation. Single automation QA on a stream came to me and said, I'm burnt out. I cannot work anymore. I will take a very long-term vacation starting from today. And it appeared that according to the contract, he was able to take this vacation immediately. To resolve this case, I would say that honesty is the most important thing. And first of all, of course, I conducted one-on-one with this person to find some solution for him, to have him stay on the project at least after onboarding of a newcomer will finish. However, it didn't work for him at that point of time. So we worked together with stream delivery manager and program manager, planned the mitigation plan for this, and honestly informed the customer about the situation and about the plan which we had at that point of time. And luckily, we received approval. So next, real task came from the customer, and I believe that some of you might also face the same request, unfortunately. The request was the following. I would like to decrease my business presence in X location by 30%. In my case, maybe for your case, it was, I hope it was less percent. You can decide on your own whether you will rotate or relocate people. So here, to resolve this request, we worked together with stream delivery manager and with program manager. We discussed with the team honestly what has happened. We decided together with the team who can relocate, who was willing to relocate. And after that, we defined key people who could not relocate at that point of time. They were key people, that's why they were not able to be rotated. So we provided the customer with the risks. By the way, the risks were accepted by the customer. So we communicated with the people who was marked to be rotated. Again, honesty is very important here. Provide sincere feedback to the manager of that person. Provide any support in finding new assignment. Try to help the person as much as possible. Next real task comes from consulting. We got new scope for StreamX. We need to analyze current test strategy to identify if still it will be efficient. Also, I need to admit that this is quite regular task for test manager on a project. However, I would like to point your attention to the fact that you need to analyze current test strategy not only from functional point of view, but also from automated point of view and non-functional point of view. And in my case, it appeared that for the previous scope of work, for that particular stream, automation was not in place, was not applicable. And for the new scope, it became applicable. That's why I defined the areas which could be covered with automated tests, defined the strategy, the resources needed, and discussed the proposal with the client. Next case came from the customer, and it sounded like, provide me with the PAN vision on test and process improvements and innovations for XYZ streams. At this point of time, we were working on the project together with quality architect. That's why we resolved this task together. We analyzed that the strategy, which was already in place, team setup, tool set for the streams, identified and documented proposal, and we identified that non-functional testing types can be also applied for these streams. We proposed testing as a service engagement, estimated costs, created roadmap, considered EPAM capabilities like accelerators, available tool sets, professionals, and prepared and discussed the proposal with the customer. So probably based on the information which you already got about the responsibilities and about the real tasks, you already formed in your mind some skill set which is needed for a test manager. However, I decided to structure them on the slides. Hard skills. As you may guess, experience in test strategy setup for system and different submodules, including test automation strategy, is a must. Knowledge in non-functional testing is required. Experience in project management activities like risk management, scope management, financial management, for example, bonuses distribution. Talking about soft skills, you need to possess client management skill, teamwork and collaboration, problem solving and conflict management, because you will face conflict at some point of time, either within the team or with the client. Critical thinking, communication and presentation, being able to provide and articulate your proposal to the customer. So if you are still interested in test manager role, I prepared some tricks for you how to grow in this role. There are 3 major steps. First of all, try to analyze your responsibilities on the previous project and on the current project. Try to map them to the responsibilities which I shared with you just a few slides ago. Find out areas for growth as a test manager. Collaborate with project manager and with delivery manager. Show them your aspirations. Try to find out the areas and the plan where you can grow. If you're working with the customer, document and agree with the customer on your responsibilities. Step number 2. Design or improve test strategy, collect measurable results of your improvements. Set up data-driven test management process by selecting appropriate metrics, trends, monitoring them, and applying corrective actions if they are needed. Establish or improve some areas of project management process. Also collect measurable results of your achievements. And step number 3 is devoted to some consulting activities, let's say. Perform project audit and present the result to the client. Prepare some proposals to the client. Help the client improve their testing process. Consider some innovations, testing trends, some industry best practices and recommendations. Justify and increase testing services for the customer. It means perform upsell. And finally, get customer trust. So that's it. Thank you for your attention, and me and Tatiana, we are ready for your questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much for delivering such an inspiring and informative presentation. Your insights were truly eye-opening and I learned so much from you. Thank you. And we have several questions in our chat. Let's start our Q&A session. Could you advise how to become a test manager? Steps to follow if the position is related to manual automation testing, please.
Let's return back. So first of all, as I mentioned, try to analyze current responsibilities. Try to map them to the metrics which I shared on these first slides. Yes, here. And trying to find out what is in a blind area for you. What you don't perform right now, but can do in the future, and can ask your delivery manager for new opportunities, for new responsibilities, for new role, maybe start a new stream, take responsibility for testing for already existing streams, and so on. So try to analyze, map, and communicate with the project management. Next, improve setup, testing process, project management process, and as I mentioned, measurable results are a must. It will be easier for you to communicate then to your managers, to show them numbers and to persuade them that you're a real test manager. And take part in the consulting area. So consult the client, consult your colleagues, try to improve, to introduce some trends on your project, to speed up the time to market, probably to increase the quality, to set up better testing process or whatever. I hope I answered this question.
Yes,
May I add some information? Actually, it depends on the situation on the project, if there is already a test manager in place or not. If the project already has test manager, you may raise the hand and say that I would like to be your helping hand. Please tell me how I can help you. Maybe with estimations, maybe with setting right priorities for tests, maybe with highlighting risks in time, maybe in tools analysis, or in onboarding process for newcomers, or be like a mentor for newcomers. So any real tasks that you can do, which may be expected from test manager, but you may help him on the one hand and grow professionally on the other hand. If there is no test manager, you may be proactive enough and create a strategy on your project and discuss it with your project manager. So proactiveness here is the crucial.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. And we have another question. Could you tell more about testing processes and tools assessment from your experience? Is that a formalized process?
Yes, as Adam mentioned, we have engineering excellence process, and the testing process is also part of this engineering excellence. So once a test manager analyzes current test process, first of all, we need to be aligned with the client expectations and with the testing processes which client have. And also consider whether they are still apply to engineering excellence standards which we have right now, or maybe there might be some improvements. In this case, we need to communicate with the client these improvements. And in my experience, I faced that some of these improvements were accepted, and the client even didn't think about these improvements before. At the same time, some improvements were rejected because they said, okay, we already tried it, it's not efficient for all our colleagues, we don't have enough knowledge in this, or we have some tight timelines, and so on. It can be a formalized process if you have such a request, or it can be informal process in the middle of the for example, product increment, or in the middle of the sprint, or at the end of some delivery phase, after some production release, you might assess how testing processes will be efficient for the scope which you have for the next releases. Maybe you will see some improvements there as well. Tatiana, maybe you have anything to add?
Well, in most cases, assessment is a really well-defined process. It starts with interviewing of stakeholders, identification the goals, with reviewing the artifacts like test cases, defect reports, and all this stuff. Then we calculate our own metrics and verify if the information we received from stakeholders corresponds to figures which were calculated, and then identify improvements, and several iterations of discussions of these improvements is usually being done. And sometimes, by the way, assessment includes proof of concept, which should be done when test tools are investigated, which test cases management tool is better, or which test automation framework fits this particular project better. So one of the stages is POC as well. And finally, very detailed, based on real facts assessment report is created and shared with the ultimate audience.
Thank you. Thank you for a detailed answer. And we have another question. Could you clarify how test manager access test tools and technologies? On one of the slides, I saw that it's responsibility of solution architect and test.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I will answer it, or
Yeah.
if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think that yes, typically in such situations, solution architect in test should do this work because it's their primarily area, right? But in ideal case, test manager should also be quite a technical guy because he has got test engineering DNA. He has origin from testing, right? And should be able to do this tools analysis as well. For instance, I will provide you my own example. When I worked in SAP sphere, it's quite narrow sphere, a sphere where specific technology is used, ABAP development. And when we tested SAP products in integration with other systems, these systems are absolutely different, and we had to identify which test automation framework suits better to do end-to-end automation testing. SAP product is desktop, where, for instance, e-commerce system is web, and also we had mobile applications in integration flow as well. So we had to investigate which framework can cover all these different technologically platforms. On the one hand, on the other hand, that it should be not very expensive, better free of charge, of course, and it should have good functionality from script analysis point of view. So test manager should be quite capable to do such analysis. But if not, he may invite either solution architect in test or just very experienced test automation lead.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. And we have another question. It's a clarification question. What does it mean stream in this context?
Mm-hmm. By stream, I mean a small team. So we had a program with several teams who developed a bit different but still connected products. So it's a team of developers, QAs, PAs, and Scrum Master.
Okay, thank you. I have another one. Tatiana, question for you. Do you have the demand for test managers?
Certainly, otherwise we wouldn't make this advertisement. No demand, no supply. Of course, there is demand for test managers, especially in case cross-vendor or cross-systems testing is needed. When the scale is big, when there are several streams or several sub-products within one platform, only test manager can cope with end-to-end testing strategy, with end-to-end testing processes, with cross-vendor, cross-locations, testing team management. And client used to understand that and is ready to pay, or client understands that there are spaces for improvement, or even testing transformation is needed, and for instance delivery manager cannot do that because specific testing knowledge is needed, so the client is ready to pay for such cases for test manager as well. Or we, for instance, my company, I work in EPAM, I understand that there are too many spaces for improvements, and we used to advise client to involve a professional test manager to implement all these improvements to get ultimate client goals, like for instance raise the quality, or speed up time to market, or save clients costs, etc. So cases are different, and still there is demand on test manager.
Okay, thank you. And additional question from a people management perspective. Do you see issues when a team member starts stealing responsibilities from other for becoming test manager? Some tips on how to do correctly.
Ira, you may start, and then I will proceed if you want. But
I guess it's part of your answer. Yes. So I'm not sure what does it mean stealing responsibilities, but I guess it happens when a person shows his interest in taking more responsibilities and performing some tasks which are already performed by a test manager. So personally, I didn't face such a situation in practice, but what would I do? I would definitely talk to this person and acknowledge his or her aspirations, the plans. Maybe this person really would like to become a test manager in the future, and as we already mentioned, this is just part of his PDP, personal development plan. I, as a test manager, would support and share, delegate my responsibilities with this person, or probably think about some other streams where this person can be helpful, can start as a test manager under my supervision and taking my help, so that this person is still motivated and will be growing, and probably he's really talented. Why not? Tiana, maybe you have anything to add?
well, there may be different situations. I didn't understand clearly from whom this person is stealing tasks. If from test manager, okay, delegation is our everything, and it's a win-win situation, I would say. Test manager has spare time for other tasks, like elaborating testing strategy optimization, or C-level clients communication, or something. And on the other hand, the person is growing. But the important point here is that test manager still needs to verify if this person performs these duties correctly, because I faced with the situations when there are big ambitions but unfortunately not big value, and not good results. So frequent feedback on the performance of this person is crucial here. If this person is stealing tasks from the one who is on his level, so we face with competition between two testers or two test leads, it's also quite a typical situation, and segregation of duties may help here. So you may delegate one task to one test lead and the other task to another test lead. If the atmosphere in the team becomes toxic because of this competition, if there is no value in such competition and the testing effectiveness decreases, then test manager should should talk to both of these people and elaborate decision. Unfortunately, sometimes even unpopular decisions can be made, and one of these test leads should leave the project. But this is just the ultimate option. Still, positive solutions should be found.
Okay, thank you. And we have additional two questions. First, you've mentioned that test manager is mostly working on strategy, while the test automation leads architects work on the technical solution. Can a test manager do both? Are they still a test manager then?
Absolutely. Test manager can do both if he is still technical enough. But my firm belief is that everyone should do his own work. The jack of all trades is nice, but it may happen that he will be master of none. And specifically, this technical investigation still should be done by a solution architect. But if TM can do both, he may be still remain in this title of test manager. But again, the proportion of these tasks is important. If he is focusing on pure test management tasks on, for instance, 60% or 70%, then definitely he is still TM. If this 60 or 70% are devoted to this technical part of work, and if it's interesting for the person, then it makes sense to consider to switch to another direction, to solution architecture. Ira, please provide your opinion.
Yeah, fully agree with you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And last question. It appears that requirements for entry to QA, among other, have risen massively since last year, with a glut in entry-level seekers. Is there any particular recommendations to stand out?
Not sure I clearly understand the question. Please correct me if I misunderstood. The question is that there are too many requirements in the initiation stage, and testers and test manager should deal with it somehow.
Yes, I understand this question. Please correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of people want to be like testers, test managers, and how to stand out in this, how I understand this question, but not sure.
Could this person stone age please provide more details? What is the problem in the question? Because we understand this question differently.
Okay, while we're waiting, we have one additional question. How does a test manager coordinate and communicate with other team members, such as developers, product owners, stakeholders?
Okay, I can take it. Yeah, it's crucial to collaborate with stakeholders, with product owners, and with the development team. And based on my experience, I would advise for a test manager to participate in such events as grooming sessions, as planning sessions, as demo sessions if you're working according to Scrum methodology, to see stakeholders like product owners and probably someone from business side, their expectations, their feedback on your work, on your teamwork, on the product quality, their feedback about the process. Sometimes it's shared during the demo. Also, it's very important to collaborate with development leads. Um, I prefer working in pair with solution architects and with dev leads while we assess a new scope. I prefer to dive into the architecture details to communicate how it will be developed so that I can design a test strategy which will be efficient and which will cover all the levels. That's why we had some sync-up calls, especially when we had new scope coming to us. We sat all together and tried to communicate, tried to find the common solutions.
Thank you. And we have clarification about previous question. Entry-level positions now require more experience with more tools.
Okay, so as far as I understood that the requirements for test manager become more strict and you need to know many tools and how to deal with all that stuff. Well, one person cannot know everything. One person cannot have experience of dealing with all possible test case management systems, bug tracking systems, performance optimizations framework, automation of testing framework. But test manager should have understanding of basics inside of each of these tools. Why it is needed, what are the best practices, which fundamental functionality should be included in this or that tool, and follow the trends, which of them are more valuable now. That's definitely clear that, for instance, WebDriver IO can be the best solution for web applications testing, but again, not for all clients. The same, for instance, for performance optimization. Yes, JMeter is free and LoadRunner is commercial tool, but still LoadRunner has some functionality which is absent for JMeter. So you are not obliged to be able to create scripts to know all the features of each tool, but understand the pros and cons of the most popular of them. That's a must for test manager. Anyway, you will dive deep in any tool only when you start working on project, and you may share your experience in one particular tool or two particular tools, and that's absolutely okay. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, thank you, Tatiana. We're a bit running out of time. Thank you. Again, thank you for such inspiring, interesting talk. Thank you very much. And please send badges to our speakers, Irina and Tatiana. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
listening. Goodbye.
Okay, and I again want to announce our competition Instagram. Please scan this QR code, follow us on Instagram, and post photo how you're watching our conference. And I want to announce next speaker. He wrote a book about testing. I started career from this book and my testing career, and I think you understand who about I'm speaking. It's Sitaslav Kolokov. Sitaslav, hello.
Good evening, colleagues.
Word
Nice
to
to
you.
see you. Okay, let me share my screen, and we shall begin in a couple of seconds. Okay, so once again, good evening, everybody. Today I want to talk with you on such maybe non-managerial topic, but nevertheless, I hope it's interesting, and who knows, maybe it's applicable for higher strategical decisions on test managers level and so on. So we shall talk about education, QA education, of course, and we will look at this topic through the looking glass of current situation with neural networks. Today, I'm speaking mostly as professional QA trainer. And I hope that my speech will not seem too pessimistic for you. Nevertheless, for past weeks, months, I've seen a lot of too optimistic talks on how perfect things are, how in the nearest foreseeable future we'll reach the stars and neural networks will help us, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, on some of those ideas, I cannot agree. So, first, I have to emphasize two important disclaimers. While speaking about education, today I will speak about education of novices and beginners in quality assurance. Because if we are speaking about educating senior testers, leads, chiefs, the situation may and for sure will look in different way. And the second disclaimer is that today we will speak about the concept. I will not show you the familiar ChatGPT window with some requests and responses. We will talk about something different. Well, we all know that neural networks is our everything today. And that brings us to two major questions. How this neural networks hype will transform QA specialists? How will those QA specialists look like tomorrow or the day after tomorrow? And of course, in order to be transformed from the current state to the next level, we have to somehow educate those specialists. Either juniors or more mature people, that doesn't really matter. And with both of those two questions, the situation doesn't look too bright for me. I will argue with anyone who disagree with pleasure later in Q&A part. What I see for now, I see a lot of people talking about either how nice or how terrible neural networks are, and those talks do not include any practical solutions. Those just inspirational talks. I also see people who making some local interesting projects. I hope that I myself do something like that. But once again, unfortunately, those local projects are hardly reusable, and such technical people, let's call them so, do not really prone to share their ideas. They prefer to come up with some solution, to implement that solution for themselves, maybe share with some close colleagues, friends, and I clearly understand that a lot of those solutions may exist, but are not known to the crowd. And alas, too few people are trying to connect the first and the second one. And that's really the problem. Because these two categories, once again, let's number them, the first and the second. Those categories of people rarely intersect, rarely cooperate due to a lot of different reasons. Occupation, mindset, projects they are working on, and something like that. And I think that once we are enthusiasts in testing, in QA, in some new approaches and new technologies, that's our responsibility to connect those inspirational people and those technical people. And that's not the whole problem. When we are speaking about education, QA education, or education in any IT discipline in general, for years, one fundamental issue exists, and I do not see any tendencies for that issue to disappear in the nearest foreseeable future. So the issue is the fundamental misalignment of approaches from enterprise and educational people to how we should educate someone, and especially today, how shall we use neural networks. Okay, if we listen to what those enterprise people say on a lot of meetings, conferences, something like that, we see several points, and I will try to comment on each of them. First of all, those nice, with their strategic vision, enterprise people say that we all have to be proactive. We have to be ahead of competitors. We have to implement today something that will become popular tomorrow. And I absolutely agree. That's nice approach, but let us for now just remember that. Then those people say, when we ask about strategy or tactical solutions, they say, guys, you know that for now we are not ready. We need time. You see that neural networks became hype literally half a year ago. Nothing is clear for now. We cannot point you to any certain direction. Either choose by yourself or something. Okay, once again, let's remember that when we point to this issue that if we do not have a direction to develop our educational approaches, what shall we do? Then those people say, okay, let's just use best practices. Let's see, maybe there is something interesting, something useful, someone already had implemented something. Let's use that. Nice. And finally, those people say, while we still do not have clear strategic vision, clear unified strategic vision, maybe let's for now just go with classical approach, classical education of QA specialists. And when we as educators listen to that, our community has something to reply. Okay, enterprise people say that we have to be prepared and proactive. Nice. But colleagues, please provide us at least with some details. We do not ask for complete explicit guide. We just need some direction, some strategy from production, from enterprise people. When enterprise people say that they need time to come up with those strategies, with those ideas, we all have to understand that educators also need time. We need time to implement some solutions, to create some new educational programs, to integrate some tools. And that really takes time, a lot of time. Okay, then about best practices, let's still remember that for now. I will return to this matter in a couple of minutes. But the final point, go with classics. I think that's really the contradiction with the first one. And with this situation, when enterprise people have their point of view, educators try to somehow adapt to that point of view, maybe the answer is somewhere else. Maybe trainees know the answer. Okay, let's ask them, and also let's see those best practices they are using. And colleagues, for now, it is literally difficult to pick some polite words, because as acting trainer, as professor at university, I see those, in quotation marks, best practices literally every day. Literally most of students only use neural networks today for now just for cheating, and nothing else. They do not even read the task. They just select the text, copy it, paste it into ChatGPT prompt, wait for the answer, do not read the answer, select the text, copy paste it into some LMS. So the student, the trainee, literally acts like an automation tool that copies text from one window and pastes the text to another window. If that's the best practice, God help us. Then, okay, some people say that this will disappear with time. I do not think so, but of course, there may be motivated people. There may be people who do not prone to cheating. They will use neural networks to obtain new information, more detailed analysis of some subject or something like that. But once again, colleagues, if several years ago we had a lot of people who couldn't even Google something because they do not understand the principle of making search query. Nowadays, those people still cannot use neural networks because they, once again, do not understand the principle. And maybe one of the answers is here. If we teach not QA, not programming, but the principles of neural network usage, all IT industry will benefit from a lot of newcomers who understand that new approach. And yet, everyone wants the cutting edge knowledge, and preferably right now or even yesterday. But in this situation, educators may go despair, and a lot of us, unfortunately, do. We do not have any clear guidance. And in such situation, of course, we are professionals. We do not just sit, we come up, we invent with something on our own. And with those inventions, we are trying to satisfy enterprise people, trainees, our educators community. But that sometimes that works, alas, not in so many times as it is desired. If you think that my speech is too pessimistic, don't rush, that's not the end. Do we really think that the situation is so terrible for now? There are two parts of answer, yes and no. If we are speaking about what's really bad for now, apart from that neural network usage for cheating, we see every day a lot of thousands, really thousands of new bright ideas, and those ideas steal a lot of resources. Even trying to keep up with something new that appeared on Reddit, on YouTube, on any other resource takes time. But we also need time to implement something, to create new educational programs, and so on and so forth. It is psychologically, mentally hard to invest into something that we do not have sure understanding that tomorrow that will be useful. What if we gather a group of enthusiasts, of contributors? We come up with some idea. We invest a lot of time, a lot of money even, into that idea. And that idea tomorrow will disappear into emptiness. 1, 2, 3 of such iterations, and those contributors will no longer believe us. They will no longer participate in something we will ask them to join. That's a huge risk, and we cannot afford losing those enthusiastic people. And once again, that huge misalignment between enterprise, education, and trainees I was speaking about several minutes ago, that doesn't disappear anywhere. But what's good? What's the ray of light in this kingdom of darkness. Of course, there are some talented people with nice vision, and they come up with some interesting practices, nice ideas that work, that can be reused, can be integrated in everyday educational process, and with time, the amount of those ideas increases and increases and increases. That's nice. A lot of people organize on horizontal basis. While we are waiting for someone to guide us somewhere, we are working with close colleagues, with friends, with someone who shares our enthusiasm and our point of view, and we organize and we spread the work in group and we achieve some results. And yet, returning to our main topic, I think that the best idea here is that QA, along with BA or something humanitarian, will benefit the most from neural network usage, unlike maybe programming or DevOps or something like that. Because, colleagues, I hope that this slide really doesn't need any explanation. For decades, we've been trying to automate the educational process with such ideas on how can we check if a trainee sees flaws in requirements or asks proper questions. I am waiting with huge hopes that in the nearest future we will see some tools, some decisions on automation of this part of educational process. And that also relies to test design, bug reporting, and so on. When a person has to create text, document, artifact, and until neural networks, that artifact could be checked, analyzed only by another person. For now, we have hopes that neural networks will help us. If you want to ask me on some certain tools, solutions for this matter, unfortunately, colleagues, for now, I do not have those. If some of you have, I will be grateful, extremely grateful for any links, names of tools. I will gladly analyze them and integrate them in my work. But I believe in our community. I believe that if still there are more questions than answers, we can cooperate and together we can come up with some nice solutions, nice ideas, nice approaches. Colleagues from EPAM, please, a couple of minutes, follow this link, Neural Networks Ecosystem. I've gathered a lot of names, projects, initiatives there. That's mind map with mostly everything I know for today, or what's happening in EPAM on neural networks in education. And I will be grateful if you will provide me with some new information, with some improvements to that mind map. And if we cooperate, if we work together, I'm sure that we will achieve more ambitious results, more ambitious goals. Colleagues, that's all from my side for today. I hope that this was not too pessimistic. Yes, it was a little bit, but hopefully not too much. And colleagues, if you have any questions, I will be glad to discuss them, to answer them.
No, it's not, Svetoslav. It was really, wow, excellent, great. And I think there is no enough words to me to describe my feelings. Yeah. This is only in the unique Svetoslav Kulikov, legend of software testing. I cannot imagine how many your fans here today in our conference, because just because of you. So thank you so much. And please comment the questions, ask anything related education, related QA. So you have a question from platform. Let me ask them. How can QA education be adapted to ensure that testers have the skills needed to work with neural networks?
Well, I think that if we have final explicit answer to that question, the whole topic of my today's speech wouldn't be actual anymore. Colleagues, I think that we have to start with basics. We have to teach people the principles of interaction with neural networks. And I think that once ChatGPT version 5 or further versions will become more and more capable of huge text analysis, we will see in the nearest future, or we will create ourselves in the nearest future, those solutions for like automated mentor, automated trainer for basic tester skills like requirements analysis, tests design, checklist design, defect reporting, and so on. I have huge hopes on that direction, and I think the best investment for now for QA education, for testers education, lies in this area.
Okay, thank you. So here we have a question from Astral Spirit. So good evening. Do you think that artificial intelligence will replace junior quality assurance testers soon?
Well, that's a popular question. And colleagues, looking back at history, once automation was invented, a lot of people were afraid that automation in testing will replace manual testers entirely. As we see for now, of course, tendencies for automation are growing and growing, yet we have a lot of manual testers still. And speaking about replacement of juniors in any industry, in any IT direction like QA, development, DevOps, and so on, this has one fundamental issue. Okay, let's imagine that magically, starting from tomorrow morning, we no longer need any juniors at all. Nice, not for juniors, but for us. But, colleagues, okay, no juniors. We still need middles, seniors. Where shall we take those middles and seniors from? How can a person become middle, senior, lead, or any other level of maturity if that person never was a junior? Is it possible to skip the junior level at all, starting with middle? I do not have the clear answer. Maybe in some areas of IT, or maybe with some self-education and a lot of everyday practice with that automated mentor we've mentioned earlier. If that's so, maybe neural networks will replace juniors in QA and some other IT areas. But I do not think that such change will happen overnight, and we still have a lot of time to adapt to this new situation. So I do not think that something like that will happen instantly.
Okay, thank you for detailed answer. So next question is from platform. So it is a great honor to meet you, Svetoslav. What do you think about customizable customizable artificial intelligence in chatbots for learners. So it can answer questions as a trainer after session or maybe now. Yeah.
Okay, colleagues. First of all, thank you. It's nice, always pleasure to receive positive feedback. Colleagues, I think that a lot of automated tools for self-study will appear today or tomorrow, and a lot of them are appearing even now. Okay, using the ChatGPT itself, one can learn a lot of things. And I know that in some areas like language training and language assessment, like programming even, some solutions are already there. And I think it's only a matter of time because that's interesting. That's a good area of research that can be rather simply monetized. And I support that idea because, colleagues, once again, the most precious resource is time. And in each and every aspect of education process, the most unscalable thing or person is the tutor, the mentor, because, okay, a lecturer can talk to thousands of people, but a mentor who teaches his mentees with some practical skills can work with how many? 3 trainees, 5 trainees, 10 trainees. That's all. But what if we have hundreds of trainees, thousands, millions? Such automated tools for self-study, for refinement of one's knowledge will be of high demand and will be irreplaceable and will appear in a huge of variety very soon. I'm sure of that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for your answer. So go to the next questions. It is from Trin. Sorry if I don't correctly pronounce your name. Could you share some trends for tester should learn from now? Some trends for tester.
Okay. This is at the same time rather simple and rather difficult question because a tester is always a tester. So even today or tomorrow or in years, a tester should understand basic principles like test design, defect reporting, and something like that. Yet, for some years maybe, there is a trend on understanding of more and more of technologies. I'm not speaking about deep understanding on developers level or DevOps level, yet on understanding how it works. Once again, in neural networks, how to implement stable diffusion for generating images, how to communicate with ChatGPT in effective way, how to write a prompt for refining some checklist or for analysis of several test cases and to make those test cases better. That knowledge is of high demand now and will only become more and more needed and popular tomorrow, I think. So the trend is first, understand basics, the fundamental knowledge. The second, understand how to use modern tools. And that will, I think, be enough at least for beginner. Because I do not want to dive into some sophisticated areas on everyday life of professional testers. They usually have their understanding, their clear vision on what's interesting for them. I'm speaking about beginners today. So once again, modern tools and fundamental knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer, Svetoslav. So, I would like to remind that please ask questions, leave the comments on chats. We are available to answer for them. Okay, let me ask questions from platform first. How can quality assurance ensure that they are maintaining a high level of quality and accuracy even when using neural networks?
Sorry, maybe there was some glitch with connection. Can you repeat the beginning of the question?
How can quality assurance ensure that they are maintaining a high level of quality and accuracy even when using neural networks?
Okay. The answer to that question maybe will be kind of unexpected. How did QA specialists assure quality without neural networks? The answer is rather long and involves listing a lot of approaches, methods, technologies, and so on. Colleagues, neural networks are just a tool. It is extremely powerful tool. It is a new one, yet it is just a tool. So if we have one more tool at our disposal, why don't we use it to simplify our everyday life? I do not want to say that we will delegate the whole testing process to neural networks, at least not today. Maybe in a decade that will happen. Today, not yet. But why don't we use our natural neural network in our head and check our results with neural networks, or vice versa? Why don't we put a task to some AI-based tool and check the result with our brain? And once we see that a lot of results from neural networks are of high quality, then we can be sure and we can stop checking that ourselves. Colleagues, a simple analogy. Calculators. Yeah, we can do math in our heads or with a sheet of paper or a pencil or something like that. But we trust calculators, we trust computers that they can perform mathematical operations. We are sure that those results are correct. Once we reach that level of assurance, and we will trust our AI-based tools to produce solid, correct answers, we can skip doing some set of tasks starting from that point in time. We can 100% put that workload on computers, on AI-based systems, and we can free some of our precious time for strategy analysis, for some nice improvements, for the art of QA, not for the clicking buttons and reading long, boring texts. I think that's how it will happen.
Great answer. Great answer. Thank you. Here's a long question from Abhij. So in 3 comments, let me read it. Earlier, becoming a domain expert was more of the goal of any tester. Today, it seems having technical skills in multiples, not just a language, and the technology hands-on are most relevant to sustain. Be it Python, Java, cloud, multiple providers, API, SQL, NoSQL, automation frameworks, GitLab, Maven, Kafka, and this is endless, and being agile on the other side. How to choose a good combo pack to build a profile in today's technology outburst with multiple providers for same thing.
Okay. First of all, I have to emphasize that idea that was mentioned by my colleagues half an hour ago, that jack of all trades is a master of nothing. So if one tries to master all that tools and technologies mentioned in the question, it will lead to a disaster. A human being will literally lose his or her mind trying to learn all that things. But if we have to choose, colleagues, I never could answer such questions because those questions remind me on, imagine someone asked me what to choose for the dinner, what dishes or something like that. I do not know your particular taste. Do you like vegetables or meat or sweets or something like that? So I do not know your background, dear author of this question. Maybe you have good knowledge in Python. Nice, perfect. Use that advantage and master Python more and more in neural networks and something like that. Maybe you have good knowledge in some subject matter area like finance or logistics or something like that. See what tools are popular there. Learn that tools. So the answer may vary hugely depending on initial data, on initial setup, on your background, on your on what do you prefer? Do you prefer to write code or to work with texts or to communicate with people or to dive into subject matter area and communicate with customers representatives, colleagues? Before answering that question, I will have to ask in return, I don't know, 100 or even more of questions. And once I have answers to my questions, I can compose all that data into one huge set, analyze it either with my own neural network or with ChatGPT or something like that, and I can produce an answer for that. But here is a simple advice. Try to list what do you have, what do you like, what do you want, and literally ask ChatGPT. Why not? That system often gives maybe not so clear, but rather inspiring answers, and that may lead you to some nice idea. And colleagues, once again and finally, sometimes we do not have too much choice. Imagine that you receive a job offer with nice salary and the list of tools is the next. Will you refuse that offer? Maybe yes, but if not, you will learn those tools. So it also depends on the real life situation. I'm sorry that I cannot provide one answer that will satisfy everyone in each and every situation, but I don't think that is really possible. So I tried to provide all my considerations, and I think that will be enough for you to start digging deeper into your particular question.
Thank you. Thank you for your great answer, really. So I totally agree with you. Okay, thank you so much, Svetoslav. And yeah, we time is end, and thank you for your effort, for your time and the presentation. It was really in high quality and really great. Yeah, and our community wish you all the best and success in your dreams. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
Please
you.
send him, yes, send Svetoslav pages.
Thank
Thank
you,
you. Bye.
colleagues. It was nice to speak here. Have a nice evening. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Please kindly remind about our competition. Please follow us on Instagram, scan this QR code, and tag our conference on your story. Tomorrow we will announce winner. More stories, more chance to win. Don't forget. Okay, I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to introduce our next presenter, Charuta from India. She's
Hi
sales lead
everyone.
and hi Charuta, how are you?
All good, all excited to meet everyone here on this platform.
Perfect, thank you. So Charuta is a sales lead and a solution architect for testing, certified solution architect, certified Trinity Tosca architect, safe Scrum Master, overall 20 plus years of IT experience in software testing, with great expertise in test solution for managed testing services, integrated testing deals in agile DevOps, and go-to-market offers creation. Quality engineering in ADM testing for sustainable IT. Yeah, I'm so happy that you're really excited, and I hope you will enjoy. Let's start.
Absolutely, I'll just share my screen. Here, just let me know if you're able to see my screen.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so the topic that I want to touch upon today is the trends in testing with scriptless automation. So I'm sure most of us have heard about scriptless automation. Some of us might be using it in their projects, and I'm sure you are taking the benefit of this particular area. What I would like to touch upon is on the scriptless automation as the trend to stay here in terms of quality engineering. How is it that it can help us to build more connection with business, have more collaboration, and establish QA effectively into an agile environment? How we can deliver value when it comes to the business scenarios, business cases, and be the real tester that we are here as the career testers. So I would say, as test manager, or for that matter, a tester at heart, what is it that we are interested in? It is more about looking at the business process flows, understanding that, and actually validating that. So it is not just the technical validation, but also the business process validations that we talk about. So why scriptless? How does that help over here? And why should we have that? Or why should we look at this option? While there are many coding languages, the scripting, which is kind of lightweight frameworks helping us to achieve the results. So I would say the answer lies in the technology outburst, I would say, or the latest trends that are there in the technology, where the business has to keep up with those changes, whether there is application modernization or digitization. So when it comes to the customer experience, or having the system more resilient or being available, are the crucial aspects of proving that it is a quality application, quality product. And that's where the testing plays a crucial role for in achieving these objectives. um, So if we look at the traditional test automation, it has sometimes the challenges. It remains at the technical validation level. We are maybe testing the components, automating them, creating the reusable code, but that is more towards helping the development to be the faster implementations. But when it comes to actually collaborating with business, showing those results to them, educating them, or coaching them on to what needs to be tested or what exactly needs to be validated as a quality gate, then it becomes an area where we need more efficient means of it, effective means of it, and that is what Scriptless is here to offer. So, three main aspects when we talk about delivering the business value. Um, the scriptless test automation, when we say scriptless, it is not the general term of just keyword based automation, or which is, there is no script involved, but there is a logic involved that is always there, and that's how our mind thinks. We think upon the logic, and we want to actually validate that logic. So scriptless automation help us to actually build that logic, and without any a limitation of scripted language, and that is where it is kind of enables the testers to create and execute the tests more quickly. So you save your time on to building technically complex frameworks. Also it reduces the cost by means of reduced maintenance efforts, rework efforts, because you have a lot of features into scriptless automation tool which are enabled with AI based features, which are in the current trends are also the self-healing features been added over there. So it helps overall into reducing the time consuming efforts, and reduces the testing cost eventually, and improves the ROI on this kind of approach. Of course, and third but not the least, it is the collaboration between the business users, testers and developers, which is at the heart of agile. When we talk about any particular business process is being has to be implemented, a business user or business analyst is giving us a requirement in elaborating a user story, but when it is perceived into implementation testers and we return it back as a feedback to business users, most of the times it is, having that gaps over there, what needs to be validated, what has got validated, what exactly needs to be corrected. So it takes a lot of time over there. But if we provide a common platform to these all these teams, whether it is business or IT, then communicating on the same platform, which is by means of scriptless automation tools, it helps reducing the overall learning curve on automation. We can enable business better to use these tools, participate into it by maybe doing exploratory testing, or by actually using those test reports to do the testing into the business environments and have a closed feedback. So that is kind of basic value adds that scriptless automation has to offer. And if we look at it, whether scriptless automation is a golden mean or is kind of a golden solution to everything, no, it is not. You will have to actually identify where you can think scriptless automation can be a best fit. So when we talk about application development, we have to have to be quicker and faster, delivering something which is kind of has to be proven technically, and then the feature is implemented. Maybe in the retail business scenario, you just have multiple features coming in, you have to develop. Maybe this could not be a right solution. Think about enterprise applications or the organization which are very heavy on processes, which are heavy on the business flows, like they are using SAP ERP systems, or there are CRM tools being used, multiple integrations, so there is a business complexity. In such cases, the scriptless automation tool is a boon, or this approach is a boon, where even if you are evolving onto the business requirements, you can use the features of exploratory testing, and it completely removes the dependency of creating a functional or manual test case. Instead, you are taking those business flows, into the model that has been created, and that is getting directly converted into an automation script. And automation engineer is not over here is working as a developer, but is actually the anchor for validating the quality issues against the business requirement, and that is what you are not bound by doing the scripting around it. So whenever the evolving business requirements are being seen, you have to really be fast and not really get into a lot of maintenance work. Then scriptless automation tool certainly is a help with complex business flows. um, as I mentioned, the traditional automation tool can also be a challenge, and it remains towards the technical validations. So the test cycle time sometimes is, it goes towards the higher side because of the maintenance effort. The automation becomes very component basis. It becomes fragile. So the things break, and then you have to spend a lot of time in maintenance. With scriptless test automation, what you are actually relying upon is the entire business process, and actually having those modular approaches to do the test automation. And you can actually prioritize the test cases by having the integration with your requirements, because you are actually working towards the business process flow. So it actually helps you when you are looking at a lot of frequent changes into the application, and you want to reduce onto the maintenance efforts. Another important point is data. So consider the domains like life sciences, or into manufacturing, or even retail, or the domains where you have to deal with the huge data. Maybe the business processes are set, but then there is a lot of variation with respect to data. There are a lot of validations that you need to do with data. So with the automation framework, sometimes the whole framework crumbles down. You will not be able to test it for entire data. It will give you ineffective coverage. With the scriptless automation, you're not actually kind of focusing on to the technical validations, but actually on to the end-to-end business process, where it can create the sets of test cases. It can create the sets with the different data variations, and you should be able to test it with less maintenance. So quantity of data plays an important role. And of course, with the DevOps in picture, having it a scalable framework and customizable testing with a broad array of technologies, or maybe you're testing it on multiple platforms. So instead of getting bogged down by certain a team which has to be able to do only scripting, so this is something where you can involve the business more. They would be able to give you a better feedback in terms of what is getting tested, and you can make those customizable test cases, customizable reports with help of scriptless automation tool. So these are some areas where you can look at the opportunity to see what scriptless automation can do best. And you can deliver it faster, deliver it at better cost and better optimization, and also with a better collaboration across the teams. So these are some of the aspects where we can identify a best fit. So when we talk about this areas of whether it is the business process complexity or the quantity of data, how do we see this as a process? So I said in the agile teams, right? If we are in the agile teams, we are actually working on small iterations. It is not really kind of spending too much time on to design. So what happens in our regular automation approach is, we take the test cases, we take the requirements, and we try to build those flows into automation. For us, the baselines are either the requirements, or the baselines are functional test cases. And then we have a lot of discussion that we need to do with development as well as business teams, and which delays the process. So what scriptless test automation, or I would say in the process way, it is actually model based testing. talks about here or has the unique feature is the focus on the discovery phase. So actually, you are putting more focus on understanding the business scenarios, then picking them up and automating and then running. So in this entire process by shift left, when we say that introduce quality as early as possible, quality checks as early as possible into the cycle, during the requirement gathering, during the implementation phase, code reviews itself, that is where the discovery phase is definitely different than the traditional automation approach. So I take an example over here. Say for example, in SAP order to cash flow, you have multiple processes coming in. You have to create first the sales order, then there are multiple interfaces for delivery creation, picking and packaging, and then creating the billing documents and eventually shipping it. So this entire process has multiple interfaces coming in, multiple data fields coming in. So you are talking about different accounts, different materials, different inventory, so it becomes complex. So how do you decide on what needs to be automated? So this discovery phase and most of the tools give us this automated visualization of the process. I have mentioned an example over here of Worksoft Analyze. Worksoft is one of the tool, the scriptless automation tool, which works on the model based testing principles. Is you can create this entire flow with the interactions with the type of data. It's a data driven flow. You can create that with help of the business users, or the business users can create it. And then these business process components, you won't be creating actually a manual test case out of it. This entire visualization can directly be converted as a modular approach into an automation case, automated case. So you are achieving your shift left testing by introducing quality checks earlier while your code is getting reviewed at the development side. You're already building the end to end business process. You are getting the data from your business users. At the same time, you are validating it into the technical environment with with role based testing, with different variations on business processes. So this is something where we can have our quality engineering teams focus more and have more collaboration with the business teams eventually in the run process. So this is again a beauty of this approach, that the business users can actually understand what is been there into an automated test case, and it is not really they need to be educated. They can follow it with the simple language, which is a human readable language being used, and the reports which are created out of it are actually the real documentation that can be used for user training. You save a lot of energy, lot of communication gaps can be reduced by using this towards the compliance reporting and towards the runs. So eventually you are delivering it faster. Now this is more of the technical process. What if there are changes happening? So you have, as I mentioned, there is complex business processes, there would be components changing, changes coming in picture. Most of the tools, most of these approaches come up with an automated impact analysis. So basically the application which is under test, maybe in this case it is an SAP system, or it is in Salesforce CRM system, it could be cloud, it could be native. So on the application, whatever changes are happening, it can do an impact analysis, identify which is the area or which are the test cases that are impacted. It can give you the self healing mechanism there, that this is something is changing, this object needs to be updated, and the application process object map gets updated. So the tools come up with those kind of features, and it is easier for maintenance. And then this is a continuous feedback loop. So whenever you are telling about the changes to the business team, that this is something where we will need to spend some extra time to make sure that we are validating the right features or maintaining the traceability, you can use actually these reports or these analysis in the tool to communicate the right analysis to the business users. So if we see it from the roles perspective, it looks like this. So when we talk about discovery phase, you're actually having this process discovery by the functional experts, by the business SMEs. It could be exploratory testing sessions, it could be even your uh, the business testers or crowd testers who are coming in picture doing this process discovery. If you're using the tool at that point of time, like Tosca or like Worksoft or Eggplant, or there are multiple tools, then it can actually record this process. It can document the business process. You can get the sign off, and when you're documenting it, these are the live sessions where at that point of time the QA engineers can at the first hand can have an information from business SMEs, instead of having it from the project managers or from the different sessions where they are going through the documentation. This is something which is live happening into the same session, can have more closer dialogue. And then there is actually a collaboration between the development team, the testers at the lower environments where we are as quality engineers are working on, and the business tester. Everyone can work together because you already have the business process, the model been created, and then you are working on the automated test cases that are being created. You are working on building that test suite, and it is something which is your focus is more on to the functional validation and not really on to how technically I should be coding this and how I should be implementing that validation. It is something which is in an easy way you will be able to do it in Scriptless automation tool. And eventually you will be doing the test execution and documentation, and at the same time update for business process changes. So this three step approach of discover, automate and run is something at the heart of this particular approach for scriptless test automation, which is model based testing. So these are the roles which can then interact better with each other, right from requirement phases to actually getting the feedback from production. So when these users are actually testing it in production, they can report it back onto the defects. You can identify which are the test cases are getting affected. You do the automated impact analysis, use that as in your input, and the business users can then communicate in the same language that you expect to hear. Yeah, okay, so there has been an issue with a particular data, and we were not able to kind of maybe create a shopping cart. Just I'm taking an example. So what is causing that? So when that defect comes to you or that particular analysis comes to you, so you can have that impact analysis in the tool itself and can understand what are the test cases that are associated with it. So when you're planning this feature to be tested further, you're actually working on the feedback directly from the production, working on those test cases, and it is saving a lot of time in terms of the root cause analysis, in terms of the actual triaging, and then delivering the results faster. So that is something when it comes to the agile teams with collaboration of the business dev and testing that we talk about. um, I spoke about a lot of tools while I was explaining the flow. So yes, there are a lot of tools in the market, but the basic principle, of course, is about what is the suitability to your product, to your solution. So when we talk about the four major areas, the business complexity, maintenance, as well as the quality of data, quantity of data that we are dealing with, and eventually the level of collaboration that we are looking at. So there are multiple tools in the market. We know the licensed tools like Tosca, Eggplant or Worksoft are there. But apart from that, in the latest trends where we have more of an AI based automation coming in picture, the tools like Cloud QA or Excel Q or Leapwork are more towards generating intelligent scripts, marking the user journeys, understanding the user flows, and then giving you the test cases created, or you should be able to create the test cases from the business process that has been created. Tools like Catalan, which will help you to test on any platform, whether it is on mobile, on web or onto the thick clients. So basically choosing the right solution is important on the aspects that I have mentioned over here. Ease of adaptation is important. So what we emphasize here is on having a collaboration with business. So which are these tools which can help business to actually get into understanding the scripts or understanding the reports that are be coming out of it, and then reusability of the test artifacts. Most of the times in our traditional automation, it happens that you are actually creating certain functional libraries, you're creating the artifacts, but then there are changes in the application, or you have to actually integrate it with another tool, and then it falls apart, so it becomes fragile. So you have to make sure that the test strategy addresses this. If you are using these tools, make sure that you understand the features of these tools to offer. Most of these tools offer end-to-end testing, whether it is UI or API automation, or it is performance testing or data management. These are been available. Certain open source tools, a robot framework is known by many of us. It that is also something, as we call it, as scriptless, although it generate the scripts in the background, but the usage of it is something which is easily adapted by business users. You can have a good integration of DevOps tooling with robot framework, and it provides a really good reporting out of it. So you are using the open source tooling here, but you are actually not spending a lot of time in scripting, and you are having a better collaboration with business users. So that is something which is testmodeler.io is upcoming, and it is more AI ML based. So these all tools can be compared, can be understood at these different pointers to decide onto the right solution. Again, everything is about the strategy. So before getting into any automation work, it is good to have the discussion onto the strategy, the long term goals, and then decide on to the tooling. And this is where it can help that you can trust these tools, and actually you are going to spend a lot of time in actual value delivery on the validations, and not on just creating the automation script. So that's something is an underlying message, and to the latest trends of automation tools. Okay, but if we look at how we upskill to it, so as test managers, yes, we will be we'll be talking to the business. We will be making sure that we are giving them the right reports, right quality sign off through these tools. But how do we ensure that our testers are also able to communicate at the same level? They are able to use that platform, they are able to produce these results. So what I have shown over here is kind of an example path for a tool like Tosca, how we can upskill onto that. But leaving apart that example, the basic criterias that you should consider for upskilling, and it's not just for functional testers, even for automation. Anyways, it is always required that you should know the basic automation principles. So understand, be familiar with the tool's interface, what exactly, how the tool actually creates the test case, how actually it does the reporting, how you should do the execution. So each tool is different in a way. So that's another area where you might find it as a challenge also with the scriptless tool, that you have to learn its way of working, and it is most of the times is not flexible to adapt to different ways of automation. So that is about being familiar to the tools interface. You need to understand how the tool treats that particular flow for validation, so how you can debug. So there are features been available to analyze the errors and failures, how to do that. So this is something which comes to the technical level, but that is something which is also helpful for everyone to understand these basic aspects of tool features. So even as a developer, when you get a defect and you have to validate how this was been reported, how I can reproduce it, you can actually come to this particular tool and check the log, and you should be able to understand in simple steps what are the steps to reproduce this defect. So you save the time on creating that process as well. Eventually, communication skills, as I mentioned, they should be able to communicate on the same platform, that I have created a script, I have created a test case. So the business users are validating those results as the simple steps, and they are able to understand what has been validated. So you need not to create separate training sessions, or you need not to spend time into creating elaborate documentation around it. It can help you deliver faster. Adapting to those features, using those right keywords onto the testing process, is something which the functional testers, while upskilling on the tools, should be looking at. And eventually, the upgrades that are happening, the integrations with DevOps, or integrations in the overall landscape, is something you'll have to understand and learn about it, and eventually give it back to the community, to the forums, understand the best practices. So that is a continuous learning process, and there are a lot of forums, lot of communities available for these tools. So the tools which I mentioned, they have their dedicated communities as well, and you can actually have the sessions guided from those communities, and can upskill your testers onto that. And the business team can also at the same time be part of the same session. So whenever you are talking about how this validation was been done, what is the test case that was associated with this particular requirement, you can actually show it into the same tool. You can show it into they can actually read it into a human readable language. So it is more about collaboration, it is more about delivering faster, and that's the trend which we see with scriptless automation. And by the actual process, we can say it is model based testing, modular approach to the business processes and business process testing. So that is what we have here to offer. um, I think I'm open to questions. That's what I had.
Yes, I'm here. Hello, Chiruta. Thank you
Yeah.
for such inspiring, great tech talk. And we already have some questions in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, first, am I correct that scriptless solution basically works with UI? If so, how to avoid inverted test pyramid anti-pattern? Sorry,
A great question. Yes, it is. It is not just a UI based automation tool. It is also for API, the basic or the web services, or even you can do it at the data level testing. Most of these tools provide these features, and you can do non-functional testing as well. The basic principle behind the design of these tools is creating the modular approach. So, for example, if I have to do API testing, I can actually parse on the XML that I have, and it creates the entire structure of the modules or the process in the tool. And then you can add the assertions, you can add the validations, not by coding, but just by adding that I want to validate this particular data, and I want to see the error code. And you're actually looking at your web services testing. Service virtualization is another great aspect that these tools offer. So it is no way just limited to UI testing. In fact, when I talk about the business users involvement, um, even before the UI is ready, is where they can provide you the mock screens, and you can have those into your exploratory sessions. And based on that, you can directly have the components or the modules created into your scriptless automation tool, and can use that as your first test case to automate. So it is something which is very much enabled into a shift left manner, and not very limited to UI based automation. However, that is the very first thing, very first instinct that a functional tester goes with, that I should be able to do the UI automation faster and adapt to the scriptless automation for it. But it actually covers the entire test pyramid, and it starts with the API layers, and it also covers towards the end user testing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for such a detailed answer. And we have another question. Now I will read it. When we are working with multi-component system, do the scriptless tools also have stubborn mechanism to simulate different component responses if those dependent components are not ready?
Yes, it can. And that's where I mentioned about the service virtualization. It can integrate and you can actually create the stubs out of it. And you can use those components. You can also create discrete automation scripts into it. So there is a component, you just have a service available. So you can mock that data and then you can use it into your end-to-end execution. So it is something which is entirely possible. There are just the simple ways of putting the buffer or putting the variable over there, and you can do it. So I'm still using the coding terms, but if you see the actual interfaces of these tools, it becomes really easy, that logically you are clear that I have to validate the entire business flow, but I do not have certain components available. In that case, I should have some mock system over there, and then you should be able to add that with the SV features or with the stub features onto these tools.
Okay, thank you for your answer. And we have also one question. Could you suggest some tool that applies scriptless for the beginners?
Certainly. So I think some of the tools which I mentioned over here, Tosca is one of the great tools to begin on, because it supports all different kind of technologies, and it does have a really great training materials available and trial versions. Most of these have the trial versions available, so you can start with that. Um, I would say robot framework is another great start for the testers, because this is open source. At the same time, it is something which is easily adaptable. If you are already having certain automation in place in Selenium, or you have certain understanding of Python, then you can adapt to robot framework faster. But actually, it might not need the Python knowledge. It is just about using the robot framework, and eventually you can adapt it faster if you're already using a Selenium scripts into the project. So these are, couple of examples that I can put.
Okay, thank you. We're waiting for your questions for pages to Charuta, and we have some questions in our VR community portal. I will read them. One moment. What are some challenges with implementing scriptless automation in testing?
Ah, interesting. And yes, so as I was mentioning, it is not a golden solution. There are certainly the challenges could be, when we say scriptless automation, it has been by design scriptless, and it is something which cannot be flexible to adapt to different another tool getting integrated. For example, maybe I'm using eggplant and I want to now reuse some other tool like worksoft onto it, on top of it. I cannot do that, or I cannot import those scripts over there. So it kind of in itself can become a bit rigid as a framework. However, I would say it is not really a challenge if we have the right strategy. What we have to understand is what is whether we have chosen the right solution. So if I'm using it for the types of testing, for the types of platform and technologies, then I have the right tool in place, and most of these tools provide integration to multiple DevOps tools, and has the open API interfaces. But yes, that could be a challenge where the framework can appear as rigid, and if you want to on the go include a lot of different integrations, then you have to think through about the integration strategies.
Thank you. And we have another comment. Question. Should I know any programming language for Scriptless?
I would say no, not as programming language, but you need to know the basic concepts of programming, like how you will put. So, what does an conditional statements do? Basic computer programming that we have. What is a conditional statement, or how do you put a validation? Say less than or equal to, or is not equal to, something of that kind. So how do you put that validation? So it is not at all necessary that you should know a scripting language, but you should know the logic. That is the answer I would give.
Thank you for detailed answer. We have another question on our portal. Um, what role does artificial intelligence play in scriptless automation?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. And I would say artificial intelligence has a great role to play over here when I speak about impact analysis, or when we talk about the changes in the business process flow. Most of these tools have the inherent capability to highlight what is the change in the application and what are the areas that are being changed into the business components. So it suggests the changes, you can adapt to those changes. So that is something where it provides you the analysis, and at the same times it also helps you in prioritizing the testing. So based on the historical runs, based on the user journeys that are been there, so it suggests certain test cases that needs to be incorporated. So it can give you a weightage for those test cases that needs to run every time. So you can select your test cycle based on this intelligence. So these are the inherent features. There are features like visual validations been incorporated. So when we talk about tools like testmodeler.io, it is actually powered by AI algorithms and the intelligence. So it helps you the create right test cases based on the user journeys, and then take it forward with the impact analysis. So yes, AI has been significant, and most of the tools have started adapting to that and creating new and new features for it.
Thank you. And we have another question. How about the database testing, like MongoDB? The scriptless automation tool can help this.
Um, yeah, that's a great question. So data validations, some tools are supporting that, not in the entirety. So it does have integration with most of the databases, and you can actually validate the query through queries, and you can incorporate or include those files into your test cases. So you can create an end-to-end test case into these tools. But comparatively, there is a limited feature. So it only supports most of the times just the basic data validations, and it actually focuses more on validating different data variations. So not actual data integration testing, but providing the test data in integrations into the actual scripts or test cases.
And we have another question. Thank you. Last question. Can scriptless automation be used in both manual and automated testing?
Yeah, I mean, I would say scriptless automation actually gives you a way of erasing this boundary between functional and automation testing. So here we are actually enabling the manual testers to use these tools and make sure that you are validating it with the right coverage and with the right integration. So you're actually enabling them with more automation. So it is something which can be used by the entire team, from the business to the manual testers to automation testers. So I don't think it requires separate teams for it. So it is the same team which can use this tool, use the same platform, and achieve the results.
Okay, thank you. I think it was last question. Again, thank you for such great preparation and great talk. Thank you, Charuta.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.
And we again want to announce our competition from QAHub. You need scan the following QR code, follow us in Instagram, and post several stories, one story how you want. But if you will post several stories, it improve your chance to win. And please scan this QR code and follow and participate in this competition. And I want to announce our next speaker. It's Peter Falhazi. Peter has experience in automation, in delivery management, and he really professional in his sphere. Hello, Peter. Yes, Peter, we can't hear you.
Yes, because I
Yeah.
should have muted myself twice. I mean, I muted myself. So, hello. How you
Hello.
doing?
Doing well, and how are you? How you feeling?
I'm doing well. I just had my coffee or part of it, so I'm all energized and very eager to present the trial testing architecture.
Okay, let's start. Give word to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, let me actually start the presentation just a moment so that people can actually see the content. Just a moment. And let me share the screen. Just a moment. And let me know if you can see it.
Uh, yes, we can see it.
Great. Thank you very much. So yeah, and thanks for the introduction. So yeah, I'm Peter Feldhazy, and I've been working in the testing field for more than 10 years now. Actually, I started back in 2006 with the game Dota, and that was more of a hobby at that time. But eventually, I realized that I actually love testing, and not just testing games, but overall, like any software products or even maybe hardwares as well. And so I've been in the US for 4 years now, where I've been a consultant, an architect, and have been many goals for me when I moved to the US, personal goals, career goals as well. And one of the career goals was that I wanted to spread the word on the flow model pattern and the trial testing architecture. So today I'm going to be talking about this latter one, and I hope that it's going to help you and your teams and your organization to grow your test automation practices and how you approach designing new test automation solutions and redesigning existing ones if it's necessary. Okay, so a little bit of a background story to the trial testing architecture. So it was around this time, 10 years ago, when I first thought about this concept. So I was working for a client who had multiple different mobile applications, and I was doing the test automation for one of their iOS applications. And then they told me that, hey, we would like you to do the same for our other iOS application as well. So I was thinking that, okay, I have a bunch of different libraries. Maybe I could reuse some of that logic that's already existing. So that's how the concept was born, and I will give you some more details about the technicalities during this presentation. And the first time I talked about it was on the Hungary Software Testing Forum a year later. And ever since then, I have reworked that presentation, and now this is just focused on the trial year aspects. And the first time I presented it in person here in the US was last year, about this same time on the Star List. So, and I'm presenting it to you, so I'm very, very happy that so many of you have joined this event. Okay, so let me give you a brief of what I'm going to be talking about in the next little over 35, 40 minutes. And so first, I'm going to give you some background of test automation architecture, talking about like how what was preceding the trial testing architecture and what is the trial testing architecture itself, giving some examples and some case studies too. Okay, so spoiler alert, this is the tri-layer testing architecture. So these are the three layers: the test scripts, the business logic, and the core libraries. The test scripts are responsible for the holding all the executable tests, of course. The business logic has all the application-specific logic, while the core libraries have no app dependencies at all. So they are reusable in multiple teams. So the reason why I share this, because there is so many information in the next 5-10 minutes that without understanding what the three layers are, it would be a little bit tough. Okay, so let me first talk about generic test automation architecture concepts. So let's sit back a little bit and please think about, like, when you think about a framework and specifically test automation frameworks, what are your expectations? So I will give everybody roughly 30 seconds to think about it. And if like write it down in Notepad or in the chat, I'm very interested in what your expectations are from a test automation framework. All right, so I think close to 30 seconds have passed. So let me show you some examples that I brought for you. So of course, first we want to automate our test cases, right? Automate our testing. And we need that. We need loggers to be able to pinpoint what is going on, even if it's successful or not. We need reports. Obviously, we want to automate generating those reports to make our lives easier. Then CI/CD integration is again very important. Like we cannot call it a fully automated solution if we cannot automatically trigger the test automation solution. It needs to be easy to use and maintain. Scalability and other aspects are also very important. So probably you can think of many other aspects that you expect a framework to have. But these are just some of the most important ones. So when we talk about frameworks, many times I see that people are mixing up the terminology here. So I want to make sure that you understand what we are talking about here. So first of all, there's an architecture design. So that's the blueprint of the solution that you're going to build later on. So the architecture is a design. It's basically, let's say, a paper, and the solution is itself what you build, the actual code and the whole infrastructure. It includes CI/CD itself, test and project management systems, integration to these systems, and the base framework, of course. So that's the framework, which is the basis of the whole solution. That's where you define how you can interact with the application. You define your test data and the test steps that you're going to take when validating this solution. Okay, so there are two more things to mention. Framework layers, of course, and the integration to the aforementioned system. So the framework layers, what I hear is many times is that people say that, okay, Peter, I have 4 layers. Some people say that, oh, I have 5 layers. Others will say that, well, my framework is superior. I have 7 layers in my framework. And when I hear that, obviously, as I'm preaching about the tri-layer testing architecture, which only has 3 layers, for me, that sounds like just too much and overly unnecessary complexity. It's not needed. Of course, you can still define sub-layers if that helps in making everybody understand your solution better. So that's absolutely fine. But ultimately, I think you can really group everything in layers. So the Framework layers basically provide a distinction between the classes and their purposes. So you are going to group them depending on that. Okay, so integration to different software systems. This is something that I added here because many times I get questions about, okay, Peter, but how many framework do I need if I test the whole system, or if I test only one system, but I would like to test on different levels. So it's not necessarily like there's one given answer to that, but I think typically for simple frameworks, there's only one system under test, which means one application or one services that you are going to test with it. If with end-to-end solutions, you might have one robust framework. Now, that's a little bit more difficult to maintain, first of all, to design and build, and then to maintain it. So I prefer to go simple, have a framework for each and every different application, and then you can build an end-to-end solution all above that if that's necessary. Okay, and that's what's being described here as well, as I previously mentioned. So if you want to do UI testing, probably it's better for you to have a separate UI framework and to have a separate API framework for your API testing needs. So those are the basics that I wanted to share about test automation architecture. And I would like to talk about the bilayer testing architecture before really going into deep oceans with the trilayer one. But even before the bilayer, I'd like to mention one which is a non-architected, a chaotic one, the unstructured approach, where you only have test scripts and nothing else, no libraries at all, nothing to really help you. Maybe you obviously are going to use some tool to do that. Let's say you pull in Selenium, but you pull Selenium in and set it up for each of your test cases separately. And obviously, this is in the long term not really maintainable and not a good solution. So the problem is that you cannot really have more than 10 such test cases. Some people want to do dozens, maybe even hundreds this way. That's not going to work. Uh, but there are some pros, of course, with this approach. For example, when you have to provide a quick POC, let's say you want to compare two different tools like Playwright to Selenium. Which one is better? And there's an aspect or a couple of aspects that you want to compare. How quick they are responding, how easy it is to use. Will it going to be a tool that your test automation engineers or developers are going to be able to leverage or not? So for that, you don't need to build a robust framework just yet. You just need to basically provide an MVP, a POC, that will tell you whether which one is going to be the one that's going to be a good fit for you, or whether the tool that you selected is a good one or not. In all other cases, it's just a big mess to go with a non-layered approach. Okay, so next up, the bilayer architecture. Now this is much better, like 10 times, 100 times. You can say any numbers, but it's like seriously so much better because you already have some libraries. So that gives you an ability to maintain your code. That also gives you some scalability, but it's circumstantial. The reusability of modules, again, is a little bit circumstantial because everything in your test libraries is dependent on the solution that you are testing, right? The product that you are testing. Let's say you have one Android application and you start creating those test libraries. Page models, obviously, those are application specific because you create the models for each of those pages or screens. And then you would have some test data specific libraries. You would have some steps. Again, they are connected to your own product that you are testing. So overall, and again, like this is something that a lot of people have been using for a very long time now, since test automation have developed further, uh, especially since the page models have appeared, the page object modeling pattern. But the problem is that if you really want to grow bigger inside an organization, or you want to build an accelerator that even outside of your organization people will be able to leverage, then you have to weed out all the application dependency. And yeah, when I see that people are still going with this approach, then that's how my face looks like. I'm not really happy to see that. So that's why I'm here to talk about the trial testing architecture, because I hope that you or your teams are going to start leveraging a better approach, a more scalable approach. And again, reiterating to what the 3 layers are. On the one, the test scripts layer. So we could see in the previous 2 ones that test scripts are always there. Now in the bilayer architecture, there was just one additional layer with the libraries. But here there are 2 layers for that are meant for test libraries. The one in the middle is the business logic, which basically holds the business logic of the application that you're going to be testing. The core libraries are application independent, and it allows you to quickly reuse those modules in multiple different teams. And some more details again about the different layers. So the test scripts are all the runnable scripts. These are ready to, so these are the test cases that you are ready to automate and have implemented. And these are going to be calling from the middle layer, from the business logic layer. If you leverage the flow model pattern, then they're going to call direct from the flow model pattern. If you don't leverage that, but you are leveraging the page objects, then they are going to call from the page models. So that's good. And of course, you can define all sorts of different test suites here. Again, that's inside the test cases. Okay, business logic. Here, depending on whether it's a UI test automation or API test automation that you are doing, you would have different kind of libraries. For UI test automation, the aforementioned flow models, page object models are what I would recommend to store here, and some application-specific base pages or maybe other modules or models. For API testing, as it's a little bit different, of course, you would have some utility classes to be able to interact with the services, like sending GET or POST requests, being able to parse messages, build params, and so on. And there will be some common business logic, which are specific, so base test or a base page. The base page is more UI specific, but the base test, it doesn't really matter if it's API or UI. Okay, and lastly, the core libraries. This is like, again, you would have base test and base page or base util, depending whether it is API or UI that you are testing, but these are common. So these are really, really stripped down base tests or base pages that really give kind of like a structure of how to build such a class file. And then in the base, in the business logic layer, you would inherit from these libraries, and you would add the application or service specific logic into it. Okay, there could be some project common libraries as well. There are, like, if you have a project where there are multiple different teams, and for each of the teams you need a separate test automation solution or test automation framework, then some of the libraries could be shared within this project. Let's say that there's a way to like there's an environment where the only way you can hit certain services is if you have authenticated your test automation solution in advance. And then that's something that you could set up. And that's a project specific module. So that's one example. There could be additional like solution dependent. Let's say that you need GPS coordinations to be able to generate fitness routes, like where did you run or where your software ran, like obviously not really ran, but faking the GPS coordinations. Or let's say that you have a payment solution that is used in multiple different projects. Again, like MasterCard payment. Okay, how do you mock that payment? That's again something that you could use in so many different projects, and it's a solution dependent solution, test automation solution. Okay, so I hope so far this is clear, but I know that probably there are already a couple of questions, so I will give you some examples to really help you understand how the trial testing architecture can be used in practice. So there's this example of an architecture. So if there's a client that I start working with, and so they identify the products that they need help with. And this is like how I would show how I'm going to organize the different libraries. And this is again just one example. Of course, it depends on what these applications are, what additional libraries are necessary to be able to interact with their applications or to properly set up test data and so on. But here you can see the core libraries have some like base test, for example, which is going to have a connection to the user actions and to the reporter. Because whenever you are running test cases, then of course the reporter needs to be fed in, and it needs to be fed with the data from the test execution. And the base test is providing that test execution harness. But the base test needs to be able to provide the capability of properly setting up or configuring user actions and it provides that for all these application tests. And you would have the Fit app based test here and the Web app based test here. So these are application specific based tests. And you would create your flow models by leveraging these test cases. And then you would be able to leverage the different steps and concatenated user actions or user flows from the flow models, and you're going to use those services in your test cases. Okay, I'm not going to explain the whole picture here, but this is how one test automation architecture example looks like. Okay, so what about the reusability, which is basically the biggest power or biggest benefit of the trial testing architecture? So one example, and it's a real life example. So there's an Android application. Let's say you start working on it as a test automation engineer. So if you follow the trial testing architecture, you would right away build the core libraries and then identify what are the modules that could be reused in other teams as well to be able to quickly build new frameworks. And then you would build your own business logic and test scripts above that so that you're going to be able to set up your tests and be able to run them. Okay, so you've been working on it for a couple of months now, and then let's say that you have to start working on another application as well. So the first one you are primarily maintaining, maybe adding some more test cases from time to time, but you want to spend your time on most of your time on this other team as well. Okay, so you just reuse the exact same libraries or most of these libraries, probably all of them, in building the second framework. So this is a separate second test automation framework. It's just that the core libraries are the same. Now you have a separate business logic and test scripts layer. So these differ from these ones on the left side, but you can basically leverage the number one applications test scripts and business logic as an example. and leveraging those examples, you can quickly build your application number 2, test scripts, and business logic. And you save a couple of weeks of work, maybe even months of work on building the core libraries because you have already previously built it. So that's great. You saved yourself and that new team and the whole project several weeks of work and maybe even more. So now there's a colleague who hears that, hey, you have a fancy Android test automation framework, actually 2 of them. And so he would like to build a similar one because let's say he or she started working on a new project and would like to take like accelerate the whole development of that framework. So what happens is that he or she is going to approach you whether you are going to be able to provide some help. What you're going to do is just provide the core libraries. That's it. Like either you can have it in a repository, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, or you just like copy it for that person and then he or she can reuse it. So the big power here is that you are going to be able to help not just yourself, but anybody who's in the same boat as you are or in a very similar situation. And for this person, now what happens, he or she doesn't have to build the core libraries. Maybe that person is not going to use all of the modules. Maybe some of there's a the necessity for additional modules. And that's what I'm showing here. So it might happen that, okay, maybe there's this project. They have some project specific modules that they would be able to leverage. Remember the example that I previously mentioned, or not just one, but multiple examples. So what happens is that you have some that others are not going to use. Let's say how you are handling your users and how the authentication process. So that's very specific to that project. Maybe in these 2 projects, number 3 and number 4, they need to leverage some solution like faking GPS coordinates. Then what would happen is that they would build that for themselves and then they would share it and then they would update it together. So I don't need that because I don't need fake GPS. Project number 2 doesn't need it either, only these 2. So that would be a common just for those 2 projects. Repositories, which I already mentioned before. So there are many ways, of course, again, like how you can do it. I would recommend is that if there's, let's say, again, going along with the Android example, if there's an Android core module or set of modules that you built and others can leverage it, then you can call it as the organization's core libraries for Android test automation. So you would have it in a repository. So others can reach it too. It's not just you. So multiple teams can just set it as a dependency and that's it. If they would like to contribute to it, then of course they need access to that repository and you need proper processes to make sure that they are not going to cause some harm in your project because of making some updates. But that's another topic, like how you're leveraging, like how you are coordinating the updates in those in this repository. Anyway, so you have your own test scripts and business logic in a separate repository. Now this could be in the same repository as the software under test. Sometimes it's good to do that, sometimes it's not. If we are doing black box testing, then it shouldn't be in the same repository as the SUT. If you are doing gray or white box testing, it could be and probably should be in the same repository. Now, talking a little bit more about these additional repositories in the core level or core layer. Now, maybe there's this project here where they would like to, they need additional modules. So because you don't need those capabilities, these modules would be in separate repositories, and you could just call them in as as a dependency, and that's it. They are logically, from framework layer point of view, are in the same layer because they are reusable elements of the test automation framework and application independent reusable elements. So they would be still considered as part of the core layer. There could be some external new modules that you incorporate, so stuff that you are not building, but are in the dependency of your core libraries. So that's another way to expand the capabilities of your core framework. Okay, modernization. So sometimes there's a necessity to leverage new libraries. Now, obviously, what happens normally if you just have one project to think of, then you have full ownership, and whenever you feel like, you either make an update or you don't. Now, when there's a core library that is used by multiple teams, and especially like so multiple people are involved in test automation, now you have to be a little bit more careful of what updates you're making. So there needs to be a communication between you and the other owners of the different test automation frameworks. Okay, so let's say, very simple example, that you would like to upgrade from JUnit 4 to JUnit 5. And so there would be some changes that you would have to make in your test solution in some of the test files, not just the base test, but maybe some of the test steps as well. And of course, that means that there's some work to do. Now, in case it's like, let's say that everybody is okay to do that, everybody's on the bandwagon, and everybody wants to update to JUnit 5, the communication is clear, and everybody does that at the same time, then you just update it in the core libraries from JUnit 4 to JUnit 5. You change the dependency. After that, everybody checks what went wrong and what needs to be updated. So everybody updates their own framework, and then everybody is happy, hopefully. But maybe there's a team where they say that we cannot make that change now because it's just too much work. So I don't want to update to JUnit 4 just yet. So what will happen that in the core library, JUnit 4 is still going to be there as a dependency. But if you want to update to JUnit 5, you can do that in your business logic layer in your own base, in your own dependency file for the business logic. Okay, I hope that this example was clear, but in case not, then let me know in the questions. Okay, I see that I still have some time, so that's great. So let me give you one case study, and again, it's like similar to what I have shown before, but like showing some more details and some concrete examples. So let's say that you have two Android fitness applications. One is for runners, the other is for bikers, riders. And so here I'm only just showing the run app, but of course, everywhere where you see the run app, then it just needs to be updated to the ride app. So that's how it would differ. That's it. So everything below this line is going to be the same. That's in the core layer. And so you would have a base page. Let's say that you are leveraging Appium for Android testing. Then all the user actions, of course, will be built on top of those Appium actions. And you would have a logger, a CI/CD. Let's say you're leveraging GitLab, and a reporter, report portal, and so on. And what would happen is that, okay, first of all, base page, you need the page, you are going to leverage that to build your page models for the application itself. So all the pages are going to be designed according to how the base page tells you how they need to be designed. The flow models are going to leverage all the actions. Otherwise, you cannot create test steps, right? So you need the user actions, And these flow models are going to be specific to the application itself, because what test steps you are taking is dependent on the application and how you are going to be testing it. Those are derived from the test case definitions. The logger, so you would just include a base logger, and now if you need additional setup for the logger, or like you would like to make it look a little bit different, use it a little bit different way than the base, then you could override it or add additional functionality to it, or additional logic. The CI/CD integration, you need to set it up. Like, it's great that you have GitLab and you set it, like created a module that lets you interact with GitLab. That's great and that's necessary, but you still have to set it up per application. So that's what you would do in the business layer. So the core layer gives you the capability of integration. The business logic gives the configuration itself. And same with the reporter. Okay. Then this is an actual example that you can use this QR code. So just scan it if you want to look at it. And so this is something that I built in Java, as you can see. So very, very basic framework. My point with this, or my purpose with this framework was to just really show how you can build a very simple Java test automation solution for UI testing, leveraging Selenium and the trial testing architecture design approach. So you would have base page here, base test, the logger file, and user actions in the core. So this is very simple right now here. Of course, you can add additional libraries. That's all up to you. And here are the inside the business logic. There are flow models, page models, the base test specifically for this website, and some validations that are specific for this application. And of course, all the flow models and all the page models. Okay, and on the right side, you see the top layer, the test layer with all the test cases. And that's it. So if you would like to look at an actual implementation, this is where you can head to. Okay, so now I see did it in about 35 minutes. So that's great. We still have some time for questions. And especially as this is the last presentation for today, I'm hoping to be closing with some great takeaways, and hopefully we'll have some great questions to answer. So let me summarize what I've been talking about in the last more than 30 minutes. So the trial testing architecture abides to the single responsibility. Oh, and actually, I see that I made some mistakes here. So let me just wrap up in a different way. So the trial testing architecture provides you a very simplified way of designing test automation solutions, and also allows you to build your frameworks much quicker in a way that there are reusable components, and you can leverage them in other teams as well, accelerating test automation development for other teams too. And basically, that's it. It's a very simple idea, very easy to follow, and very easy to teach to others. So I hope that you're going to be able to use this in your projects now. And if there are any questions, you can ask them from me right now, or you can contact me as well on Twitter or on LinkedIn. And I have a couple YouTube videos. So hopefully in the future as well, I will be able to provide some more coding sessions as well in YouTube to really show how it looks in practice. I'm also publishing some articles from time to time. So if you are interested in testing overall or test automation, I'm very happy to see you on my website. And I would like to thank the QA Hub for inviting me to talk on this event, and I hope to be part of this event in the future as well. So
Hi,
I'm
Peter. Yeah, sure.
yeah,
We will be glad if you will be again our speaker. I really enjoy your presentation. This is really awesome presentation,
thank you very
and
much.
yeah, I found it very useful and excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you. So,
Great.
I would like to ask our audience to not hesitate to send to Peter pages and leave feedback on our Instagram, Telegram, and follow him also. So, let's ask questions. Here, um, from Ivan, I see the first question. I'd like to express my gratitude to Peter for the three-layer architecture book. It helps me a lot in building test automation frameworks and answering questions about tough architecture on interviews. Wow. This
Thank
is, this is really good feedback. Thank you, Ivan, so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very happy about it. I didn't mention it, but last year there was a book that was released, and as part of it, the trial testing architecture was also released. That was the PNSQC's book, yearly book for those who speak there. And so I spoke there in Orlando last year, and there's, I think, 8 or 9 pager for the trial testing architecture. So I'm really happy. Thanks for letting me know that, because it makes me really proud that and happy that I was able to help you. So that's great.
Yeah, that's really great. So, he has another question.
Hmm?
How to split UI page object components between the core and the business layer? On the one hand, page object works on the core layer. On the other hand, it contains business flow logic.
Hmm. Yeah. Let me. I think the best way is if I go back to the presentation and let me see where I can. Maybe this is going to be the best slide to do that. Okay, so here I have a base screen, because this is a mobile application example, or mobile applications example. I call the pages screens. Maybe it's a little bit easier to call them page models, because the concept itself is called page models. Anyway, so basically the base screen here is the base page, and here I describe how a page looks like. Typically, it's not going to have too much logic in it. It's a very stripped down not library, but class file. And then I would just inherit that, and that will give me basically the structure for both applications, how I'm going to create the page models. Uh, Again, this depends on many things, like how much efforts you are putting into test automation overall, uh, what are the needs on the project, and what type of application you are testing. So it's going to be different with a desktop application, or a mobile application, or with a web application. So maybe for a web application, you would have more logic in the base screen compared to a desktop application. Probably actually it's the other way around, to be honest. But yeah, so for example, like how to create, how to locate the elements. You could have that inside that. Or you could also decide to have a separate class file called, let me come up with a fancy name. Let's call it a mobile element. Well, Appium already has it, to be true. But let's say that you are testing certain type of applications. If that's something that your organization can reuse, then you would have a specific element for that. Call that, let me see, Petrichor element. That's a good name. Okay, so let's call that Petrichor element, and then the base screen would be able to hook that in. And then after that, you would be able to leverage it in the business logic as well this way. And I hope that the answer wasn't too circumstantial, probably a little bit. So I hope that it was still clear.
Great answer. Thank you. Thank you. It's really detailed.
Okay.
The next question is from Igor Back. When should you foresee extensibility of framework if the current basic implementation completely suits your needs?
Yeah, I see where this question is coming from. I think many, like, to be honest, most of the cases, people don't foresee that, because what happens, like, especially like depending on what kind of company you're working in, like let's say that you're working in a product development company. Then you join that company, you start working in a team, and if there's no one to really oversee test automation as a whole in the organization, then nobody is going to tell you that eventually you would have to reuse some of the elements in other teams as well. You will be sitting in a team, you will start working on a test automation framework, and eventually someone will tell you that, hey, we need your help, Igor, in another team as well. So that's when you are going to start thinking about, okay, what do I have in the test libraries that I could reuse in this other team? After that, you identify those modules, then you would start weeding out all the solution dependent logic, or the application dependent logic, and then you would reuse that there. Now, that's a typical situation. But now that you have heard about that triad testing architecture, you can be proactive and say that, okay, I want to be prepared. I don't know if I ever have to reuse these modules in other teams or not, but I will build my framework with that mindset that eventually I might need to do that. And if that happens, then I don't want to spend several, maybe a week or a couple of weeks on weeding out, like identifying the class files and weeding out the unnecessary logic. Because building your framework with a trials mindset is about the same amount of time as building it with a bilayer mindset. You're still going to think over what the design is. You're still going to develop your class files, and actually it's going to be probably even easier because it's much clearer what each class file is responsible for.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you
Sure.
for answer, Peter.
Yeah, sure thing.
So there is some questions from our platform. Let me ask them. How do you think, how does three-layer testing architecture help ensure software quality and reduce defects?
Oh yeah, that's very good. So I think how it helps is that like, okay, let me step back a little bit. So when you want to prevent defects and how trial testing helps, when we think about it, there are two aspects we can think about it. First, that there's an architecture design. Like, compared to not having an architecture design, it already helps you because you think over how you are going to build your own solution. Just like with the application that you are testing. If there's no solution architect to design an application, it's going to be a big mess. You can bet. So that's clear. So if there's a solution architect that's going to design it, and that person is going to work together with all the developers and all the other stakeholders, then what will happen? You are going to have a better designed solution. So you are already preventing defects this way because there are no architecture, like, defects because of bad architecture. Same with test automation. If you want to find the defects, but you have a poor design, then what will happen is that you are either going to find issues that are not issues in the application, but inside your own test automation solution. So now you are going to spend time on finding them and fixing them instead of on creating new test cases and basically provide better quality. That's one thing. The other thing is the reusability and scalability, because the work that you put into building your core libraries is going to be saving time and money in other teams as well. Now they are going to be able to spend their time on finding defects instead of building a test automation solution from the ground up. So that's basically the answers.
Great answer. Perfect. Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much. That was the last question, actually.
Mhm.
And yeah, I really want to express special thanks for you, Peter, and for your effort, special effort. You are also our speaker in our last podcast. Our podcast org team once again a record session with you since you are really a professional speaker and a great presenter, and it's really true. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your effort, for your presentation, and community, our community, and personally, I am wish you good luck and all the best in the future. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Gaukhar, and everybody who organized this event. I'm very happy that I was part of it, and I'm already looking forward to your next event and to the podcast as well. So yeah, just
Yeah,
send me a
we
message. I'm
appreciate
here.
so much. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah. Sure thing.
Bye.
Bye, and thanks for all the comments, Igor, Ivan, and everybody. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Arina, could you please mute? You are on mute. Unmute, please.
Oh, sorry. Yes, and I want to announce again our competition that in our Instagram in QAHub, scan this QR code, follow us on Instagram, and post photo how you watch our conference. For example, this moment, how we finalizing our conference. Again, want to thank you, all our speakers, all our audience that wrote a lot of comments, questions. Thank you all.
Thank you
It
for
was
your feedback. And really, it was amazing evening. We really appreciate it. Uh, and it was, I think, first our really good management conference. So don't forget that we are organized different events also, and we'll announce them on our social networks. So please follow us there in Instagram, LinkedIn, and the Telegram. So okay, send us badges, please, and we will be really happy for it. Thank
yeah.
you. Have a good
Thank you.
day.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.